Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Encounter Roleplay. I nailed it again. My name is Will. I'm a D&D sex icon, and we're back today for another episode of The World's Tree Burns. I was just discussing with the crew before, this might be the longest running show we've ever had on the channel at this point. This is technically episode 30 if you include the 60 episodes from last season, which is fucking wild. But let's go around and meet the cast and crew, remind ourselves who we are, who we're playing tonight. Dan, our illustrious Dungeon Master, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm ready to go. I'm Dan Dillon. I'm Dungeon Master for this here game of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, The World Tree Burns. Thank you so much for joining us all. We are in the middle of the Marguerite Forest, and there's going to be some interesting stuff going on.
Ready for a tea party. Yes.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Tea party time.
Yeah, we have Simply back with us today. Simply, how's it going tonight?
It's pretty good. Just hanging out. And three people, I guess. I don't know. I'm excited. I'm in the midst of like my whole life like overhaul right now, so this is like this great reprieve I have in the middle of the week to be able to come and play D&D with you guys. So I'm super excited to continue writing this story, and I hope you guys are too. Yay! But I play our dwarven fighter Tilly. She's got a really bad Scottish accent, and she probably drinks way too much ale for her own good. But that's that's dwarves. So what can you do? I get
Fantastic. We have McCloken back with us today. Luke, how's it going, my friend?
Hello, I'm McCloken. How are you today? I'm playing Cloak, the lovable Nihime gnome. I'm glad to hear that, Will. I am going to always speak the truth in this game, so whatever you hear me say, it's accurate. Doesn't matter what anyone else says. And we're in a shit show right now, and I don't know how Cloak's gonna react. I'm gonna do it moment by moment because I didn't want to plan how he would react because I think this would be like kind of a fear instinct, and I want to play it out as it goes. Yeah.
Fantastic. And we've got Scarlett Moth back with us tonight. Scarlett, how's it going today?
Hello, I definitely haven't been stressing over this show all week. No. I have no idea what's going to happen. So I couldn't come up with a plan, so I think I'm just rolling with it. I'm playing Rowan, the Ravenfolk cleric, who may or may not be dead.
Definitely is.
Definitely, yeah,
Definitely
sort of. Definitely sort of dead.
We sorted that one out. Oh, dear. Tool School, how's it going today, my friend?
Oh,
Super
you are muted.
31 months. I think I've been a subscriber longer than you've been alive, Will, or something like that.
That's true.
Yeah, it's like I was just sitting here and Will came along and made a channel around me. I am playing Glaz, who is our geomancer wizard, and he's always wanted to go to a fancy tea party, and here's a fancy lady offering to have us to a tea party in the middle of the Marguerite Forest. It sounds lovely.
Totally does. Can't wait for it. I myself will be playing Riordan, the Dampier Paladin. Riordan has joined them in the Marguerite Forest to escape a breakup that never really happened, but in his mind definitely did. After guilt buying an apartment for his now ex, maybe boyfriend, Jeniel. So he's on vacation as far as Riordan is concerned. Although if any heretics do show up, then they will have to all be killed. Murdered immediately. But otherwise than that, he's going to be having a good time, kicking back, relaxing today, with some tea by the sounds of things. But before we get started today, I'll remind you guys of the usual things. The first of which is, of course, we're here, sponsored today by Kobold Press. We're using the Midgard World Book campaign materials. Go and check that out on koboldpress.com for your own Midgard adventures. The interactive map is awesome. And all of the materials there for running a dark fantasy D&D5E campaign, more than you could ever hope for, so go and check that out. And of course, our regular sponsors for the show include fantasygrounds.com, our virtual tabletop of choice. You can go and sort out your own virtual tabletops from home, playing online with your friends with fantasygrounds.com. The demo version is free on Steam or on their website. wetlandgames.co.uk is a go-to destination for tabletop war games, board games, and more at up to 20% off the retail price, so go and check those guys out. And then last but not least, tabletoploot.com is the place to get all of your beautiful dice. If you haven't gone and retweeted this tweet, when we hit 20 retweets, which looks like only a couple of retweets away, we give away a set of tabletop loot dice to you guys watching live there in the audience. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, you can come join us every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern to watch the show live, and of course to be in for those giveaways as well. You can, of course, donate to affect the game by giving players Nat 1s, Nat 20s, wild magic surges, and oh so much worse. But on that note, I'll hand over to our Dungeon Master Dan to remind us what happened last week on the show.
Right. So last week was a little bit more of a laid-back episode for the most part. It was in the aftermath of all the craziness with the devils that attacked you in the Silk Scabbard, and you guys have the invitation that to a party, a feat at the Zealous family estate, and of course the Zealous family. For our friends here, are famous for botanicals, rare plants, herbs used in spell components, alchemy, as well as medicinal and just aesthetic purposes. But also, apparently the patriarch of the Zealous family was a void speaker who was doing horrible, unspeakable things below the city and in the nearby ruin of Castle Shadowcrag. And thwarting whatever his plans were cost you the life of one of your companions. And so that's sort of just looming over you coming up in the next few weeks. In the interim, there are all sorts of little things you all had decided to put right and get some irons out of the fire and finish these little tasks up. One of those was taking your dwarf smith friend, Paula Everforge, out into the Margrave Forest to the sort of now abandoned holding that her family used to live and work. It was a forge with a very particular furnace that drew its power from the elemental plane of fire. Cloak desires a magical saber, and while Paula has some small magical talent, because you've seen her shut down that furnace and condense it into a little mote of pure blue elemental flame, which Glass carries in a lantern, she is not a wizard or an artificer or anything like that, so she needs the assistance of her ancestral forge to create this weapon. And so all of you have trekked out into the Margrave Forest with that in mind. You made an offering to the forest in the form of 6 live pigs, thanks to the research done by Cloak, that the ancient and very real sentient presence of the forest can turn against you if it doesn't like you. And so he made that offering to kind of smooth your passage. Making your way through the forest, you camped. There were some in-depth, some interesting heart-to-heart conversations that happened over the night while watches were held. And everyone on watch heard strange rustling noises off in the forest, but never saw what it was until you struck your camp the next day. Everyone feeling somewhat groggy and tired, like you just didn't sleep very well, just run down. And as you were getting ready to break camp and head the last few hours of travel to the halls of Everforge, a woman, beautiful, otherworldly looking woman with skin of polished wood, hair that looks like long growing moss with a crown of beautiful wildflowers woven into it, a sort of almost like a short toga, kind of off one shoulder, made of the same, woven of flowers, with a bow held in one hand. She walks barefoot. Her eyes are this flat, swirling gray of a storm front, clouds in the sky. And she smiled and bid you good morning and told you that she had been sent by her mother to offer you an invitation to tea. All 6 of you. And that's where we pick up right now.
Well, I'd love to go to tea. Anyone else in? Kind of parched. Wait a minute. Are you a dragon?
Who is your...
She laughs a sort of... her voice when she laughs, it sounds like almost like chimes rustling in trees blown by wind. And she says, no, dear boy, I'm not a dragon. Of course not. And even if I were, I mean, you know harm.
Well, there you go. That seems good to me. I mean, I've just had a messy sort of breakup thing, so I'm looking for, no strings attached kind of tea.
She just sort of smiles knowingly at that and sort of sweeps her gaze around at the rest of you and says, well, Shall I take that as an acceptance of this most gracious offer?
Dan, a few things.
Sure.
Do I know about these tea parties?
I mean, you've heard all sorts of horror stories. Oh yeah, I guess we should also say that Cloak is the only one of our assembled heroes who knows what this creature is. This is a Vila. They are related to dryads, and they are said to be the daughters of Baba Yaga, the witch.
Because there's a few things I want to be doing right now while everyone's having this conversation. I have a piece of paper. I'm scribing, this is a Vila. They can't see me. Part of the ritual. And then I'm sliding that in Glaz's hand. And then I'm getting up close to Puff Puff because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm whispering in Sylvan. I'm like, stay with Glaz. And then I don't know if anyone else looks at me. Cloak has a mix of like fear, anger, and I want to say like bloodlust coming off of him right now. And he's staring very intently and like his hands on his hilt. And if anyone looks at him, he would like, huh?
You haven't drawn yet? Sword still sheathed?
No, he knows. I think he would know that they can't see him, but if anyone looks at him, he would be like,
Yeah, Rowan would have looked at you because she understands Sylvan.
Okay. So, everybody, Cloak is acting a little weird. He seems equal parts terrified and enraged and just barely still on the handle. His hand is on the hilt of his weapon. His red cloak with the moss and acorns and mushrooms that grow out of the hood and down the shoulder parts of the mantle is wrapped tightly around his shoulders, and the corner of it that he usually wraps around his left wrist and uses as almost like a dueling shield, you can see that it's like slithering of its own accord around his hand and kind of loosening and tightening by turns, and it looks like the hem of it on the other side is shaking or vibrating, and it gives you the visual sense of a rattlesnake's rattle. All right, Ladybug, time to go. Go away. Yes.
Tilly will. I'm sure I would notice this much action happening and nobody else noticing, or at least not this Vala noticing, even though I don't know where she is. But I think in reply would be like, well, while tea is really nice, I don't think it's on our schedule for today. I mean, don't you get work we need to get done, right?
She holds up a hand and kind of waves your concern away, and she says, "Oh, I'm certain it won't delay you terribly long, and my mother's home is not far from here. It won't take you far out of your way."
Who is your mother?
She just sort of smiles at that and tilts her head and looks at Rowan with this sort of, really? Look. Glaz, a slip of parchment has found its way into your hand as Cloak kind of edged over to you. And kind of very subtly. Yeah.
I mean, this woman who has approached, I think Glaz he's got a couple things going on. First thing, it's the here's a nice woman, the hospitality, in our midst, asking us to go to tea. The other one is, if I recall, Cloak did, informed us about him doing his senses and saying there's lots of fae around, there's lots of the undead and that sort of thing. And I mean, I guess the question would be, I mean, not knowing who this is or what it is, but knowing that there's fae around and knowing that fae get offended and stuff, in general. I mean, would I even have that? I mean, that's sort of just general kind of knowledge in the world, is fae are tricky.
You're proficient in Arcana. That's very basic to know about fae. Yeah. Fae are very they're very capricious, but they're also very beholden to etiquette and protocol or procedure. The problem is you can't really ever pin down what the damn procedure is, so it's very easy to commit a gaffe.
Yep. Having gone to school in Bimia, he's familiar about making gaffes. That is, I think he would say, "We would never want to to turn down your hospitality, which has been so kindly offered to us, great lady. However, I do not think that we are presentable to honor you in such a way to attend this tea at this time, perhaps. I would hate to offend you or your mother in any way.
She says, if my mother would be offended by your presence, she would never have requested it. Think nothing of it.
What's your mum like? I mean...
Oh, she's wonderful. I think you'll love her. She's very
sounds
old.
Like a win-win.
But she's very knowledgeable. And she's also very powerful.
Oh, she said knowledgeable.
She's lived many lifetimes. She knows
Does she
many
have lots of
secrets.
stories to tell?
She has all the stories to tell, my dear.
Oh.
Every single one of them.
Does she have ale?
I'm certain she does.
Can I roll insight on her, Dan?
Sure, go ahead. When you make this wisdom insight check, please do so with disadvantage because you're finding it a little difficult to focus, and part of that is just that overwhelming tiredness you're all feeling because you all slept like anus, as far as you can tell. It's a weird feeling.
Let me see here. Hold on. There's something about my character that I get like a bonus to when I deal with Fae.
You get advantage on checks to track them and to intelligence checks to recall information about them.
Okay. So this will be just straight up.
Yeah. No. You're inciting her. Yeah, it's disadvantage. Okay.
Yeah.
10. So you're just trying to get a read of her?
Just trying to figure out if she's telling the truth or what the fuck she's doing.
So, like, she seems sincere. She doesn't seem like she has any ulterior motive necessarily, but you know that she may have 15 different layers of motives. And certainly where you're concerned, you personally, none of those motives can possibly be good. Mm-hmm. Now, if she is unaware of your presence, then maybe your friends can skate through. But you know that these are dangerous creatures to deal with. And if she's talking about taking them to grandmother, that is just a whole other ballgame of this could go so many different ways, and so many of them are so bad.
Can I roll a perception to see if we're surrounded?
I will tell you that you guys have heard moving in the brush, not too far from you. So there are definitely other creatures out there. You don't even need to roll for that. Mm-hmm. They're not particularly trying to hide their presence. They're just not within line of sight because of the foliage.
How is Paula acting?
Paula is, she's got her arms crossed over her chest, and she's kind of flickering her eyes from the polished wood flower woman to the rest of you, and just sort of following your guys' lead. Let me make a checky check for Paula. Unfortunately, that disadvantage robbed her of some potential knowledge. So she seems a little bit off-put, and it looks like she's kind of deferring to you guys to figure this out.
I think Glaz, again, very aware of potential offense, is not going to like open up a note and start reading it in front of this person. In response to her last address to him would be, well, if we've been invited specifically, we would hate to give offense by turning down such an invitation. I think we would be pleased to have it, maybe just one cup, so we can get on our way to do our business that we are headed towards.
She smiles again and basically takes that as assent for the whole group and says, "Wonderful. It seems you already have your things. This way. I shall lead you to my mother's house."
Cloak.
Yeah, Cloak, what are you doing at this point?
fuck. Because we're surrounded. How strong do I know Vila to be? Like, I imagine they're powerful.
So go ahead and make me an intelligence arcana check with no advantage or disadvantage.
Crit success.
Okay, just going to burn a 20 on it. Okay.
Yeah.
So individually, you feel like this crew could take a Vila. But you don't know how many others are out there, and you know that when they get together, things get a little bit more dangerous. You are pretty confident, based on what you're hearing moving around out there in the bushes, you're pretty sure you could take them if it came to a fight. It's not you're not necessarily going to walk away unscathed, but you can probably take them. You know that they can enthrall their victims. They can, and actually, now that you're starting to think about it, this strange lethargy and this little bit of dullness to your senses is starting to worry you, and you put two and two together. That rustling that you all heard in the bushes in the woods outside of your camp, that was the Vila dancing. When the Vila dance, they create a fairy ring of mushrooms, and anyone who falls asleep within that ring, when they wake up, they find themselves somewhat disoriented. So essentially, the mechanical effect of this, guys, is you have disadvantage on all ability checks.
So it's basically like the first level of exhaustion.
Yeah, but it's not actually exhaustion.
Right.
Yeah.
Fuck. I don't think they should go see grandmother or get anywhere near her. Cloak. Oh, this is gonna be fucking crazy. All right, Cloak is going to, as she's like trying to like entice them and all that kind of stuff, will quietly draw out his sword, and he's going to charge at the Vila and stab her.
Okay. Anybody else going to take any action?
Considering I was just
Because
looking
you see,
at him,
you guys can see Cloak.
Warhammer.
You see his eyes go hard, and he draws his blade.
Well, hang on a minute. I guess I'm drawing my sword as I say it, because this is like go time for the group.
Yeah, Tilly's
trying
gonna
to
step right in
grasp
front of
for him.
Rowan and just put herself between the Vela and Rowan, and that's it.
Okay, so you're putting yourself between the Vila and Rowan. Rowan's trying to stop Cloak.
she's trying
Riordan
to
is drawing the
cloak.
lash.
Yeah, I mean,
Drawing the lash, and
he's not moving to attack anyone, but he's drawing it in the expectation that Cloak is about to start a fight for us.
okay. Glaz, anything?
Yeah, same.
You're
Yeah,
muted,
it's
Call. Mutes.
Glaz is concerned and curious about this. He drops the shadow pearl right in front of us to affect all of us
Oh wow!
with compulsion.
All right.
What now?
So all right, we've got.
I don't know about the
we've
shadow
got a-
pearl.
We've got
It's
a lot of things going on here. Cloak, Rowan is trying to stop you. Tilly is kind of getting between you and Rowan and the Vila. Riordan's just looking a little bewildered, but ready for go time if it's happening. And Glaz is pulling out the Shadow Pearl. How do you want to react to that?
How I want to react to that?
Yeah, like do you want to keep on as you were?
I'm still
or-
trying. Like it's fucking like Terminator Red Vision right now. He's fucking pissed, and he's
Then-
fucking ramming the sword at her.
Let's
with
all
his Mega
roll
Warrior.
initiative, please.
Oh boy.
So recall that you guys all have disadvantage on initiative.
Oh, right.
Oh,
Balls. I was trying to save us all.
Pretty low.
oh God. Well, that's a 3.
Well, at least you didn't get a 1.
All right. So anybody over 20? Anybody 20 to 15? Anybody 15 to 10?
I'm strongly
14.
considering burning.
14.
Can I burn a 20 on this?
You can.
Oh, I should have done that.
I'm gonna burn a 20.
Okay. So what does that give you? 20 something.
21.
Well, because we have disadvantage, don't we actually have to burn 2?
I don't know. How does that work?
I don't know. That's up to you, Dan.
I mean, no.
I would
I'm
say that
assuming-
if you spend a 20, you spend 1.
Right.
You get
Yeah.
it.
I assume you spend the natural 20. You basically just skip the roll, and that's the result you get. All right. So
Okay.
we got Rowan, top of the order. Cloak, you're on 14.
Yeah.
15. Other 15 to 10. No. 10 to 5.
Oh, I got a 10. I got a 10, actually. Yeah.
10. 10. All right.
Nailed it.
Oh, I could save us all. Do I burn a 20 or do I go with my roll? I think Rowan still goes in front of me. But yeah, I'm going to burn a 20 as well.
So what does that give you?
That gives me a 21.
All right. So who would like to go first between Rowan and Glaz?
I leave that up to Glaz.
Well, I'll go ahead and go and we'll see what happens.
There we go.
So-
Yeah.
All right. So Tilly, where are you at? That's a
1.
big old 1. 0? A 0 modified? Yeah, okay.
I feel like a big 0. Just a big old.
Oh.
No,
All
it's
right.
fine.
So, all right. As all hell breaks loose, Cloak is death staring at the Vila's seemingly unprotected back. Glaz, you're the first to react. Your hand dips into the pouch.
Drop the Shadow Pearl, which is,
All right.
believe, a 60-foot radius.
Something like that. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's big.
So it's called compulsion, I believe.
And it's compulsion, which is a wisdom saving throw for everybody within the zone. It's dim light, creates dim light in an area of compulsion. And Glaz says, I think I can just say a thing, right?
Yeah, you can speak.
It's just designate a direction. Can it be stop? Can a direction be stop?
Not exactly, but sure. I'll allow you to force people to remain stationary if you want, rather than making them move away.
Move. Yeah, the compulsion
Sure.
is to stay still.
Sure. Yeah, I'll go with that. All right. So Glaz reaches into his pouch and takes out this vial that's crusted with a rime of frost. He pops the stopper open, and immediately this wispy black mist begins pouring out of it, like when you open a freezer on a hot summer day. And he pulls out this pure black pearl and tosses it down at the ground that explodes into these swirling shadows and mists, filling almost this entire glade that you guys camped in. So everybody needs to make a wisdom saving throw.
I include even Glaz does, right? I'm in the air.
Yeah.
Is this also a disadvantage?
No. Creatures of your choice that you can see within range. So you could choose to exclude people.
Ooh. I want everyone to feel on equal footing here. I'm going to do everybody.
Okay.
I want it to
including
be including the Vila, so they don't think that I'm affecting them and not us, or that I'm affecting us and not them. It's the peace talk time.
Okay.
Does
All right, so
17 pass?
Is
Yeah,
that
it is it.
disadvantage, Joe?
No, he said they're saving throw, right? It's not ability.
Yeah. Saving throws are not at disadvantage.
No, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Just checking.
And is it my spell save DC, or does the Pearl have a spell save DC?
I believe the Pearl's spell save DC is 15.
Hey,
Okay.
wise people.
Hey,
Wait,
Rowan
where's
is
this
like
guy?
a Rowan.
Cloak on the now on.
Rowan and Rioden passed, and it looks like that is it. So Rowan, you feel this spell sort of wash over you, and you can feel these mists of dim, shadowy, chill essence wrapping around your legs and tugging not only at your flesh but also at your mind. But you manage to shrug it off. Cloak stops in his tracks. So you manage to kind of get in front of him, and you can put your hands on him if you want. If you want to like grapple him, that'll require checks, assuming he doesn't want to let you.
Yeah, she's putting her hands on his shoulders at the moment. Just to sort of not grapple, but keep him there.
Okay. The Vila spins around in place, and as she does so, you can tell that she's very, very shocked. She's startled by this. She pivots on one foot that doesn't move from where it's planted in the moss. She brings her bow up and draws an arrow back, draws the string back, and an arrow just kind of grows out of her fingertips and loads the bow. And her eyes narrow, and that swirling storm starts to intensify in her eyes, and she says, "What is the meaning of this? We offer you hospitality, and this is how you repay us? Explain or die, Trollkin."
Oh, God.
So that would be Cloak. Your turn.
Did you just save us all? Really?
Don't know.
No. So I can't move.
You cannot move.
Can I make a wisdom saving throw? I don't know if there is a rebuttal wisdom saving throw I can do, and that would be the end of my turn.
Well, yeah, after
so
you stop. Yep.
I believe you're going to have to make a save at the start of your turn, basically.
Okay. Let us see if I make it 19.
That passes. Yep.
Okay.
The end of your turn?
Because I'm not being grappled, I'm running.
So no, it's going to be at the end of your turn. At the end of your turn.
Oh, the end of my turn. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's after you move in the way that the compulsion dictates, you can make a save to try and throw it off.
But yeah, I think it just affects your movement. I think you still have actions, yes?
Yeah, you can still take actions. You just can't.
Am I in a place to attack?
You're still probably a good, at this point, 20 feet away from her. Because she started walking into the woods.
And I can't take a dash action?
You can't move, no.
Move.
Okay. I think I'm going to end my turn there because I can't move, and that's why he's basically just trying to kill the shit out of her. So,
okay, all right, Riodan, your turn.
I move to be between Lavella and Glaz because she's just threatened him.
Oh, the Vila. Yeah, all right.
Lavella, okay. Sorry, yeah. So
got it.
She's just threatened him, I think. Yeah, Lavella. Cruella Lavella.
Well, she did threaten him. She demanded an explanation and threatened consequences if he doesn't.
Yeah, so I've got my lash out, and I'm like, let's everybody calm down here. I'll be in a place to take a hit in case Glaz is going to get attacked by her. But Riodan doesn't know.
Are there any other actions? No? Okay. So
I don't want to do anything like Buffy. I probably should if we're going to get into a fight, but that's not clear. So no, he's going to hold off. I guess maybe I'll hold an action in case. If she attacks, I will attack back with my lash, let's say.
Okay, so you're readying an attack to strike at her if she attacks you guys.
If she attacks one of us, yeah.
Got it.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay.
I guess see what my donation was. Well, yes. It's loading. There it is. Crimson Phoenix. Nice 25 pounds. Nobody has saved from a Phoenix, or perhaps this is a blessing. A wild magic surge for all players.
Okay.
Bryan.
So let's
Love
start doing that. Tilly, your turn.
I think Tilly would. I don't know. I'm not convinced that Tilly would want to necessarily fight, but she would go defense. I would want to use my free action to go for dodge, but I would also like to use my action to try to persuade her that Glaz, he's very clumsy. He didn't sleep very well. I'm sure you know these woods are hard to sleep in. He just happened to drop.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen him drop like so many things over the time.
So you're using your action to dodge. No problem.
Yes.
You, I believe, cannot move. So you're trying to calm the Vila.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and let you make a charisma persuasion check with disadvantage.
Sure. I'm gonna use my nat 20 on that. There, Bob.
Ooh, all right. All right. So she, her face softens a little bit as she listens to you speak. And,
I mean, look at him. He's got
she-
great big hands. He can't hold everything at one time sometimes, you know?
she'll sort of look at you, listen for a moment, and nod once, and it looks like she lowers the bow, so she's no longer training it on Glaz. And she says, I would still have an explanation for this. This was no accident. He invoked this magic.
Tell her about his glass.
So it is, it's true.
I assume
Glaz, it's your
I
turn.
wait till my turn.
Yep,
till
it's
I
your
can
turn.
talk. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, is it me? We're
Yeah,
all the
it's
way
you.
through?
Yeah,
We're all the
Tilly
way
is
through.
0.
So yeah. So Glaz, this is going to be so bad because I don't know that Cloak is invisible. That's why I was trying to figure out what would you do. I don't know that you're invisible. I just know that you are protected. So I'm assuming she can
Make
see.
Glaz, you can make a wisdom insight check with disadvantage.
Well,
Okay,
on
wisdom.
the note I put in your hand.
I haven't read it yet. That's the problem. I was saying that because I was holding it to not do offense. Insight, and this is at disadvantage. Oh, this is gonna go
Yeah.
so bad.
Oh,
Yeah,
this is
yep.
a comedy of errors.
14.
is not bad. So there's a lot of action happening roundabout Cloak, but she didn't react until all of you started moving. That's what drew her attention. Cloak
Okay.
just started sprinting at her, and you guys kind of got in front of him before he managed to do anything. She didn't seem to notice at all.
Okay, so in that case, yeah, whole. Oh, damn it. Glaz is going to handle this about as well as I do. I meant no offense at all. I wanted to make sure you were safe. I was worried that there was danger in the area. I was trying to keep everybody safe. I use this on all of us to show my good faith.
Okay. So go ahead and make a charisma persuasion check straight up. I'm giving you advantage because you did hit all of your allies with the spell as well, and it was quite obvious that you did. So that offsets your disadvantage.
Yep, and I used my nat 20 to get top of initiative. So here we go. Dice are going to tell the story, folks. A 10.
All right.
What, do you have
I was
advantage?
about to say, I can give you my nat 20 if you like.
Now let's let the dice play this. I'm fine with that.
A 10. So she doesn't put her weapon away or lower it entirely, but she kind of mulls over what you said. And then we'll get to her in a moment. Rowan, what are you doing?
She's going to back up Glaz on this one. My companion meant no harm. There was a danger. I could feel it, and I believe that he felt it as well, and we wish to just stop everyone before anyone came to blows or anything struck. This is an ancient forest. You are well aware of its magics. There is something at play here.
Okay. Would you like to take any actions in particular? So you're kind of, piling on with helping persuade her. Oh yeah, Paula. I'm gonna have Paula go on -1.
Cloak is still held, isn't he?
It looks like he's. It looks. No, you can see that he's starting to shake the effect off.
I'm really sorry. I'm gonna hold person on Cloak.
Oh, I'm gonna roll this wisdom. Fuck!
So,
These rolls.
reminder there, McLocan, you're a gnome, so you have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws against magic. So you get to roll another die there.
I forgot about that. Hold on, let's re-roll
Yep.
this. Oh!
That is called gnome cunning, friends. All right, so he just shrugs off your spell, unfortunately. The Vila, at this point, snaps her eyes over to Rowan as she was listening, and she sees you cast a spell, presumably at nothing, and tilts her head and narrows her eyes. What is going on here? So that is her turn. She says, "You say there is a threat. Clearly there is something here you are aware of that I am not. I know the Margrave and its secrets far deeper than any of you mortals. What is the meaning of this? Sisters! We have danger!" And you hear movement from out in the woods.
I just
So,
wanted to go pee.
Cloak, that's your turn.
Ah, shit.
You're muted.
You are doing the thing that Glass does.
You are still muted.
Still muted.
I'm sorry. Are the sisters visible now? Do they come out of like the woodwork?
They are not. They are not visible.
At this point in time, can I make one check? And that's if I launch this attack, would we be I'm trying to think of would we not be safe in the Margrave?
Okay, go ahead and make a intelligence, arcana, or nature check, and I'll give you advantage for your favorite enemy on that. And if you're proficient, you can double your proficiency bonus for favored terrain.
I can. Okay. So this will be +6 to this, so an additional +3 to the roll.
Yep.
Nat 20. So
Oop, there you
26.
All right. So also keeping in mind that you have a disadvantage on all ability checks, we'll go ahead and take the 16 though. So that's still a 20. What? 22. Still a 22. Okay. You think it is entirely possible that screwing with Baba Yaga could dispose the forest against you. This is purportedly one of her many homes, but this is kind of where, there are many stories of her. This is where she lives. And you can feel that for the moment, you are free of the compulsion spell.
Yeah.
But the Shadow Pearl is there, and it is still pouring its magic into the area.
This is a tough decision because right now, would Cloak go out and start attacking? I mean, like with the review, because like the knowledge he knows is that like a sister alone we could take, but if the other sisters show up, we would be fucked. And then the whole situation.
It depends on how many. One sister you could most assuredly take. A handful of them you can still probably take, although you're probably going to bleed for it. You know, if a pack of them show up, that might be real bad. But you can go ahead and make a wisdom perception check with Hang on. Does favored enemy give you advantage on perception? I think it's just to track them. So I'll go ahead and give it to you. Go ahead and make a straight up wisdom perception check. No disadvantage.
This is a very hard decision.
A straight up wisdom perception check. No advantage or disadvantage.
That would have been straight up.
Yeah, I'll let you take the 12 if you want, or you can reroll.
Yeah, I'll take the 12. That's fine. I'll take the lower.
All right. So you've lost track of where they are. You suspect they have hidden, but you're pretty sure there are at least 2 other Vila out there. Those are the ones you definitely got kind of an auditory bead on.
And the situation is that it's not looking good. Like they're already agitated.
If there are 3 of them, you guys can probably take them. They are real nasty, though. It looks like, as far as the situation with this particular Vila, it seems like the other 2 are following her word or waiting for something overt to happen. And it looks like your friends have talked this one down, at least from immediate hostilities.
Okay.
Will they be able to talk their way around this completely? You'd have to wait and see.
I am going to... You see Cloak, he's like literally shaking, holding his like sword, but he's like getting in position where he can get like into her ribcage, and he's just waiting and watching. And he's sitting there.
All right, so Cloak just sort of quietly stalks through the clearing. His boots crush moss and crackle leaves and snap sticks, and the polished wood lady does not seem to notice him at all. She doesn't react to the sound of his footsteps. She doesn't look at him as he approaches and kind of levels his blade over his forearm toward her rib cage. Just kind of her eyes at this moment are flicking between Rowan, Tilly, and Glaz. So that's Cloak. Riodan, at this point, are you holding off from any hostilities, Cloak?
I'm reserving an action. If she attacks, I'm going to attack at her.
Okay, so if we're all just kind of in standoff mode, I'm going to go ahead and say we can go out of initiative.
Okay.
If you guys are cool with that.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So the tensions are very high. You can feel it just sort of tightening the muscles between your shoulder blades, and you can feel it pressing in on you in the air. The Vila, the polished wood lady, flips her gaze between the 3 of you and says, "I'm waiting for an explanation. What threat is here that you can perceive and I cannot?"
Yeah, what the hell, everyone? Oh, by the way, while
perfect.
Vintage. The next potion, I Imbibe, enables me to breathe underwater. Sweet. Cool. That's a good one.
Good to know.
Glaz,
make a note of that, because I will forget.
Yep. Glaz has Scalding Steam sprays violently from his spell's target point. So presumably
we'll
the next
remember
spell
that.
That Glaz casts.
Sure.
Cloak, any damage against Cloak is rolled twice using the higher roll.
I have advantage on my next damage roll against Cloak. Got it.
Rowan, all weapons within 50 yards steam violently on contact with water. Sweet.
Okay.
And
cool.
Tilly, the next weapon to wound Tilly penalizes her AC by 5.
Ouch. All right, I got a tank buster up my sleeve. That's good to know.
Yeah.
What have you done?
All right,
Bryan.
everybody, remember your pending wild magic surges. All right, so it's kind of to you guys. You don't hear anything else from the sisters that are out in the forest, and the one in front of you, she looks at that swirling darkness around her and says, "Is this threat past? Can you cease these dark mists?
What the hell is going on here?"
This smells of shadow, and I dislike it.
I will actually, I can go to the pro because it's at my feet, even though I'm under the compulsion. I assume. I mean, is it my concentration to break it? I mean, how it's a concentration.
Yeah,
spell,
you have to concentrate on it. Yeah, yes.
So I break the concentration on it. I go.
All right.
I go. The threat is no longer affected by this, but is still present. This is not helping the situation. I'm looking at Cloak. This is not helping the situation.
Cloak is dead. Doesn't even look. He's deadpanned at this.
All right. So she visibly kind of sighs with relief as the darkness swirls away from her back into the pearl, which is now like a little pinpoint of ice in your hand, and you drop it into its little container that you keep it in. So she lowers her weapon, lets go of the arrow, which kind of unwinds into these sort of green and brown tendrils and vines, and just sort of vanishes in a puff of what looks like pollen in the wind. She looks around and then looks back at Glaz and says, "So you are telling me that this dark magic you brought into my home and surrounded me with, invaded my mind, was for my safety?"
It was.
She nods once and she says, "Your words ring true, and then I am grateful. But this threat is still present. What is to be done?"
I honestly do not know.
"I dislike the thought that there is a foe about me that I cannot see."
It is very disconcerting to me as well.
"Sisters, if anything befalls me, raise your song." You hear nothing in response.
To tea.
Okay. So tea, I think someone mentioned tea. I'm still thirsty. This is all weird. Shall we just,
still welcome to tea with your mother? After
she narrows her eyes.
Definitely want to meet your mom.
That at that moment, that's when you see the fucking eye contact make Glaz when he says tea with your mother, and he just stares at him and then stares back at the villa. That's it. That's the only reaction you get.
She's silent for a moment, and she says, "Yes. We will at the very least go and speak to my mother and see if she still wishes your company after this strange incident. I have no fear that whatever this threat may be, that it poses any danger to my mother. The Baba Yaga is not so easily threatened." And when she says that name, that strikes you all. That strikes you all in the gut. All of you have heard tales of Baba Yaga, also known as Grandmother, a witch, seemingly immortal, travels anywhere in the world, knows many secrets, but is very difficult to deal with. Sometimes she can give you exactly what you want or what you need. Sometimes she steals you in the middle of the night and cooks you into pies and eats you along with her children. It's said that there are kings and high priests and night lords who are all vanished into her hut, never seen again.
Excuse me, I think you said she's making some baba ganoush?
She,
right? That's what you said.
She just kind of rolls her eyes at Ryodan and says, "If you would follow me then, we will go and speak to my mother and see if she still wishes to speak with you."
Glaz, Mom is Baba Yaga. Why did no one tell me?
We did not know until right now. But
Read the fucking note. What note?
Once they turn around, I will look at the note.
All right, what was on the note again?
Probably figured it out a little bit.
But what was on the note again?
This is a villa. She can't see me due to the ritual.
Oh, there you go.
Glaz reads and looks at Cloak and goes, what can I say that's not going to... Glaz is just sort of nods at Cloak and goes, it's more dangerous to say no than to say yes at this point.
It would be incredibly rude to refuse tea with such an esteemed woman.
Wait a minute. Isn't
such
Clo-
a
isn't she
knowledgeable
Cloak's
woman.
grandma? Does that make her? Is that Cloak's mum?
Oh, sorry. The pollen is this time of the season that it gets in my throat.
So she walks a few steps away toward the kind of edge of the clearing and stops and turns back to look at you. This just kind of statuesque, perfect posture, and kind of looks over her shoulder with a toss of her long moss-like hair and says, "Well, are you coming?"
Yes, I am coming. I would love to potentially hear some of the knowledge that Baba Yaga is purported to know.
She kind of nods once and then walks into the woods. And
Glass follows.
okay,
Because
Puff Puff.
I get on Puff Puff and follow Glass.
Okay. You slide up into Puff Puff's saddle. She'd kind of sidled up next to you during that tense exchange and was just kind of waiting to see what happens. So yeah, no problem. Paula, at this point, lets out a massive breath that she'd just been kind of holding for God knows how long at this point. And she looks at Tilly and she goes, "What is going on?"
I tried to say no. I mean, I don't even like tea. I mean, I like tea food, but I don't like the actual tea, so I try to say no, but...
All right, well, we're going to lose them if we don't keep up. Let's go. And she kind of grabs a hold of the mule's lead and heads off into the path to follow after Glaz and the Vila.
Tilly will follow, but to ensure that Rowan's behind her and not in front of her.
All right, so you follow the Vila, who walks easily and just really actually effortlessly through the forest. She just seems to glide through the underbrush. She never loses her footing. She never seems to have any difficulty passing through brambles or brush. She occasionally takes note of the path she's taking and will avoid nasty, impassable terrain, sort of out of a courtesy for you guys, but she just seems to walk right through it. All right. So, after, I'd say, about an hour of traveling through the woods, and each of you, I would say, every now and then, you catch maybe a little glimpse of movement off in the forest on one side or the other of you, or you hear just a faint, snap of a twig or rustle of underbrush. So, apparently there are more beings out there kind of shadowing your steps along the path, although they keep themselves fairly well hidden. After an hour or so, you come to another clearing, and as you do, you can see that the tree line breaks open, and it looks like there's sort of an overcast day, just kind of this gray, wan sunlight shining down in the morning, and there's a curling blanket of thin mist creeping into the forest along the paths and over the gnarled roots of the trees, seeping in from the clearing. The Vila walks straight through the tree line and into the clearing and kind of beckons you all to follow.
Glass keeps following.
Okay. You head into the clearing, and it is noticeably chill, and there's a little bit of a kind of a cold moisture that hangs in the air despite the early summer season. In front of you, the fog isn't thick enough to really obscure your vision. It's just enough to kind of fuzz things out just a little bit. You see a brown log hut or like a small roundish cabin with shingles of hewn wood kind of haphazardly laid over one another. There's a front door whose frame is somewhat crooked, but the door fits into it snugly. There are a few windows set on either side of the door that gives you the uncomfortable impression that the hut itself is looking at you with this kind of gaping mouth. Here's the weird part about it. It is probably a good 15 feet up in the air, hoisted up on these brown and orange spotted chicken legs. The yard around it is surrounded by a fence of basically what look like sharpened sticks, each one of them surmounted by a humanoid skull. The eyes of the skulls burn with faint greenish blue lights. And there are just sort of discarded things in the yard. Looks like a rusty plow, a broken barrel, some boxes, an overturned chest. That just kind of stuff, trash almost, thrown in the yard. The Vila walks up to the gate in the fence. There's a little gate there, and she places her hand on it, and she looks up at the hut and smiles fondly and warmly. And she says, "Hello, hut. We have come in response to my mother's bidding. Would you please settle down to the ground and allow us entry?" And the chicken feet kind of scratch at the dusty ground and shuffle a little bit, and you can hear the logs of the home creaking and groaning as it settles down. The chicken legs kind of kneel and get swallowed up by the foundations of the hut. And there's a faint rumble as it settles down to a little set of stone steps that now lead to the door, whereas before they led to nothing. And she turns back to all of you, smiles, unlatches the gate, and pushes it open with a just kind of spine-tingling that echoes throughout the clearing. And she waves her hand up toward the door and says, "My mother awaits."
Right. Well, I've just remembered I didn't get her anything, any flowers. I should probably go back to the city.
Rowan is putting her hand on Riordan's back and pushing him forward.
I'll
She
go
smiles.
shall I? Great.
She smiles and says, "I'm certain that any gift that will be necessary for my mother you have indeed brought with you."
Don't like that. I say as I go in.
Glass walks right up with purpose.
Okay.
Oh.
You walk up the stone steps. They're not, it doesn't look like they're mortared. It just looks like it's like flat field stone kind of stacked, but it's reasonably solid. It doesn't really wobble or give under your feet. It seems like it's been here for decades, maybe centuries. You head right up, and there's kind of a wooden door that's not polished. It looks like it's smeared with tar and to make it waterproof, but it's old and weathered and thankfully not splintered. There's a glass window with kind of a cross frame, so 4 little panes of glass, but the glass is so grimy you can't see in. You can see that there's a flickering firelight from inside. And now that you guys are closer, you can see there's a stone chimney with smoke just kind of merrily pouring out. So everybody going in, Paula follows along with Tilly, and she ties the mule to the fence with kind of a distasteful wrinkle of her nose at what appears to be a gnome skull driven onto one of the pikes.
Rowan's going to let everyone else go in first.
Ornamental?
And she's going to look at Cloak and Puff Puff as everyone else is going in and sort of give raise a feathered eyebrow.
So anybody not going in? Let's try that. Cloak, are
Tilly-
you kind of hanging back and waiting to see what everybody else does, or?
Yeah. Well, if Glass
Okay.
is walking up with purpose, he's on Puff Puff walking with Puff Puff and hanging on.
Okay, so you just basically follow right behind Glass?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Vila smiles, reaches out, and strokes Puff Puff's head and kind of scratches her under the chin. And she says, "It's been a long time since I've seen one of your kind. Welcome," in Sylvan. And Puff kind of gives her a like a nervous doggy smile. So you can tell her eyes are nervous. They're kind of showing whites, and her tongue lolls out, and she kind of pants. And her tail, which is tucked low, does kind of swish back and forth a little bit between her legs. But yeah, she's nervous as hell.
Yeah. As she's doing that, I'm like patting the side of her neck, like calming her. The
Vila's hand cloak passes right over your thigh, like she strokes along the length of the dog and right over your leg. And you just stiffen as you can feel that touch. And then she turns back to look at the others expectantly. So everybody going inside.
Yep.
Okay. So after you all head in, she closes the gate behind you. And waves up to the door and says, "Well, it's best not to keep her waiting, wouldn't you say?"
Of course not. We should. Yes. Is there any etiquette that we should know in her presence to not offend?
Be respectful.
I have heard many names for Baba Yaga. What is her appropriate title?
Like Baba? Is that like
you can call her.
Yaga's her name?
You can call her Baba Yaga. You can call her grandmother. Either will suffice.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
So she smiles, seemingly oblivious to Glaz's discomfort.
Rowan's putting her hand on Glaz's shoulder and just squeezing reassuringly.
Cool. All right. What now? You guys are... Glaz, you are at the threshold in front of the door.
I step through, gathering my courage and with purpose.
So you just kind of open the door and take a deep breath and head in?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. There is a kind of an old tarnished brass handle, and you turn it, and it gives a screechy, screechy click, and the door swings inside. You head in. The rest of you follow.
Nice.
So, looking at the walls of this hut, this cabin, as you make your way in, there's actually a little bit of a shudder that runs through it, as apparently the legs underneath it kind of shift their position into something more comfortable. So the floor kind of pitches underneath your feet as you step in, just slightly. As you step into a what looks like sort of a combination foyer and sitting room, and it is just filled with stuff. There's feathers and trinkets hanging from the rafters. There are shelves that are sort of bowing in the middle, just packed with books, with bottles and jars, with all manner of strange fluids and things floating in them. There is a stone fireplace under... Well, wait, no. The chimney was over there. The stone fireplace is across the room. And now that you're looking, Glaz, this room is way too big to fit in the hut you saw from the outside. There is a smell of baking pies with a little bit of a hint of roasting meat. There's a roaring fire in the stone fireplace, and there's an iron arm that has swung a kettle over the flames that looks to be merrily boiling away. There is an archway that leads into another room, kind of a ways down to your right, and it looks like it leads into a bedroom of some sort, and the bed in there is just piled with quilts and furs, and the foot of the bed is sort of dominated with stacked junk, like old crockery and more jars, and you can see that mountain of bric-a-brac is sort of engulfing what looks to be a chest or maybe like a footlocker, but it appears to be carved of emerald, and there's a soft greenish glow from inside.
Oh, visitors at last. Welcome, welcome, one and all. Come in, dears. Don't wait at the door. You're letting the heat out.
And from shuffling around a corner, just a kind of teetering stack of stuff near the fireplace, is this stooped, bent, wizened old crone. Her hair is sort of long and wild and white and gray in various patches. Her robe is this old burlap homespun thing that seems to be unraveling at the hems, and she has sort of a blue shawl wrapped around her head and her shoulders that looks like it was probably knitted centuries ago and is barely holding together. She has a necklace of various small bones, and similar jewelry adorns her graying wrists. Her eyes are filmy yellow. There's no pupil, no iris, just this milky yellow sort of sheen behind her droopy lids. And she smiles underneath her impossibly long, pointed nose, surmounted somewhat comically by a little wart. Her teeth are black, pitted iron fangs. You can see little bits of rust in between the teeth themselves. And she holds up her hand and crooks her fingers that end in these long claws at you, and just sort of beckons you in and says, come in, yes. You finally arrived. Longer than expected, but perhaps not.
Loving this holiday.
Tea for one and all, yes.
Yes, please, grandmother. We are most honored to have received your invitation for such auspicious company with you.
Yes, of course you are, Glazishin. Of course you are. Come in and sit.
So she goes over to the kettle and she pulls it off the fire, and she begins pouring boiling water into a teapot.
Rowan is making sure everyone's wiping their feet or their shoes at the door, and
when you do, there's a stack of stuff nearby that kind of wobbles and clatters as the floorboards, when you press on it and wipe your feet, kind of bow underneath your steps. All right, so she takes the open lid of the teapot and sets it aside, and she goes into a sack, a little like a leather sack or pouch that's at her side. She reaches into it and she begins drawing things out and sprinkling them into the water. And she
Glaz sort of stutteringly. I learned a little about tea ceremonies in Bimia. I unfortunately was never often invited to them. I was the only Trollkin there, and many people were... I was not invited to many. I often sat alone at lunch. He's just sort of babbling.
Yes. Far from the north, strange. Your people,
yes.
Interesting. But neither here nor there. All of you.
And she kind of stops and squints and leans forward and sort of, with great effort, takes a couple of tottering steps closer towards you, and she kind of groans a little with the effort of it and rubs at her back and says, all of you, so very interesting. Come in and sit. Come and sit.
Glaz either finds a spot or sits on the floor. If it's more like a low table type idea, he just tries to go with the flow.
Sure. So you head over, and it looks like toward kind of around a little corner and a half wall with a kind of a rough carved column. There is in fact a table that is mostly clear, and several chairs arranged around it. Looks like it's expecting you. Arranged above the table is kind of a twine net that's tacked to the ceiling with these copper nails, and hanging in the net are these various colored glass globes, and they have faint lights sort of bobbing inside them. Not enough to really cast light around. The fire is doing most of that, but yeah, they just kind of they hang almost like a bizarre chandelier over the table.
Ooh, shinies.
So Gladys, you head over to the table. You all head over. Riodan, you go to take a seat, and as you pull the seat out and settle in, your armored weight creaks and groans. The chair creaks and groans in protest over all of the steel that you're wearing, and so you kind of settle down a little gingerly to make sure you don't have a mishap. And as you do, the chair scoots itself in comfortably, bringing you to the table.
How tall is
nice.
the table? If you don't mind me
the table looks it's not super tall. It looks like it'll be comfortable for medium-sized creatures, so dwarves and humans alike, humanoids.
Grandmother,
Puff.
if you don't mind if I ask.
Yes, daughter of the North, scourge of the seas and bearer of the Silver Raven. What?
Her
And
name's
she begins
Tilly, by the
pouring
way.
tea.
Just in case.
Would you be offended if I chose to stand? I sat most of the night. I got a little bit of creaky knees going.
Stand if you like.
So when you say that, the chair that was kind of next to you gives kind of this soft groan.
You're
Audible.
welcome.
You can hear it. Yeah.
Very heavy.
So she brings the tray of teacups over, and the tea is very aromatic. You can smell it before she even gets over to you. It definitely has a very floral smell to it, but also pretty earthy. Very strange smelling tea. And she sort of sets the tray down and says,
There is no sugar, but honey. Honey, if you like. Mm. Well, dears, do any of you want honey?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
I
so
do
she crooks her finger, and a crock sort of jumps off the shelf, and you can hear it like almost softly grunting with effort as it drags itself across the table, and the lid pops off. Boom.
Well, isn't that convenient? Well, thank you so much, grandmother and Mr. Croc. Thank you.
Where
just
are you
one-
going?
And
we
she
are
kind
going
of
to-
lets her roomy eyes just sort of sweep over all of you. And Cloak, you feel a prickle on your skin as her gaze seems to sweep through and past you.
Where
to
are you
the
going?
Everforge.
Of course you are. Been there
Of course.
before. You bring...
Tilly, look at Paula.
its beating heart with you. Dangerous, carrying such flames and embers through the old Margrave. You're either very brave, very stupid, or very desperate. I like all three.
All
little
of the
of both.
above, perhaps.
I'm very single. That's all I am.
So you all have your tea, and there's a sudden sort of thumping from a box back near the fireplace, by which is an oven, and it kind of thumps and judders, and you can hear a faint, sort of high-pitched cry from inside. And grandmother just sort of ignores it, and she says,
I think you forgot to prick the steam holes in your pies.
"Oh, that was not from the oven, Rowan. It was from a box near the oven."
Oh. Oh, she thinks it's from the oven.
Right.
Stop talking about her steamballs.
She grins widely, and you can see some of the rust is rubbing off on her thin lips, and she just sort of cackles.
So interesting seeing all of you, seeing where you have tread, and what you have done, and what you are going to do.
We are a band of misfits, it would seem.
But misfits with purpose. I find that interesting and frightening. And her fingers kind of clench and her nails dig into the surface of the table. But for now, more interesting. I wonder if I might give you all tokens of my favor. And she reaches into the she kind of reaches back into the box that was sort of mewling near the oven, and you hear that cry. It kind of raises up when the lid opens. It's sharp, it's screamy, it sounds maybe like a humanoid scream, but from a very, very small type person, like maybe childlike. And she reaches in, kind of and like swats something, and the screaming sort of stops with a yelp, and she pulls out a bone, closes the box, and the bone has a fair bit of meat on it. And she takes it over and she says, "Oh, what a lovely beast." And she tosses the bone to Puff Puff. We can't. We shan't leave her with an empty stomach, shall we? Too rude, too rude. Yes, then. Tokens I offer you. Would you accept them?
I kind of only wear designer, but I'd consider it. I mean, I don't want to be rude. What? I mean, I don't really know. Honestly, I don't know what a token is.
So she comes over to you and she reaches out and she reaches one finger towards your cheek. And assuming you don't pull away or try to swat her hand away or anything, she reaches forward and she scratches the side of your face with her fingernail. There's a little bit of a stinging burn, and she loops her finger up, and you can see a single drop of your blood hanging from her nail. And she reaches forward, and you have an amulet of Morena around your neck, I believe, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like tucked behind your armor because you don't wear it openly in Zobek, at least.
Correct,
do you wear it openly while you're traveling?
Sure, that's I do.
Okay, so she takes it and she drops that drop of blood right on the center of your amulet. And the rest of you, you can't see it super well because it's down under your chin. The rest of you see his blood kind of run throughout the carvings of the amulet, and it starts to shimmer with this red light. And she says, "That will be appropriate for what you will require and what you do." "Yes, very appropriate." And she kind of licks her talon-like nail.
Felt inappropriate, but thank you.
Just how you like it, isn't it?
You know me. Reputation catches up with me again.
It always does, Ryodan. It always will.
One might say you have done your research.
Research? No, that one does research. And she points at Glaz.
I do.
I don't research. I know. And I tell the stories when I must, or when I have to, or when I can't not. She turns and reaches under a shelf and opens it up. And has anyone tried the tea by any chance?
Oh, Glaz.
Rowan is looking at it and trying to identify what's in it.
So there's definitely some dried flower petals, things like bergamot. There's probably some sort of actual tea leaves in there as well, but then also various dried mushrooms. It's difficult to pin down what they are because it looks like they've been powdered, so you can't necessarily identify them.
How's it taste?
Like no tea you've ever had before, but it's not bad. It kind of fills your mouth with its flavor and almost feels like it sort of coats everything. And again, it has floral notes. It has this sort of deep, rich earthiness to it. It's very strange. Very strange.
So she's rummaging under a cabinet and starts kind of just throwing little bits and bobs, like an old brass candlestick and a cracked plate. And she says, "The last time you traipsed through this forest, you slew a dragon." Yes. A dragon of flame. It had such ambition, that one. If you hadn't stopped it, it would have grown so very powerful. But you slew it, and now its bones char to cinders in its home. But grandmother stole its skin! And she pulls out a parcel from underneath the cabinet and brings it up and sets it on the table and pushes it over to Rowan. "You're going to die again if you're not careful, and that wouldn't do for any of us. Put it on, that you might live long enough to be of use."
The dragon skin she's giving me?
So what you're seeing is basically just kind of a bundle of stuff wrapped in what looks like leather.
Rowan will unfold it and look at what it is.
Okay, so you unfold it, and inside is what appears to be a reasonably heavy set of armor. It is made of... you recognize the scales immediately. It's the same thing that Cloak's mask is made out of. You see a suit of armor made from flame dragon scales. Though it looks like they've been manipulated and twisted in some way. And it's definitely a heavier suit of armor than you might normally be comfortable wearing. It looks like it's probably more along the lines of half plate. But it is lighter than steel and is pretty hot to the touch, like hot shower hot. Not burning, not super uncomfortable, but noticeably hot. And yeah, so it's mostly this coal black, and then there's these veins of deep red glow, like lava beneath a crusted volcanic rock surface. And grandmother just sort of putters around a little bit more, and as she does so, that shelf that the crock of honey jumped its way off of kind of pops, and a bunch of little things just go scattering off of it and kind of roll onto the floor and roll of their own accord just across the room. And Baba Yaga pays it no mind.
This is an incredible boon you give to me. I must thank you, I suppose.
You should. And she grins again, showing off her iron teeth.
I am not used to such gifts.
Tilly, she is sort of tromping her way by and stops and looks at you and kind of leans in close, uncomfortably close. And you can smell her breath. It smells like fetid, wet swamp. Like if you took a shovel full at the bottom of a swamp and overturned it, it smells like that with a little hint of fresh blood and old sausages. And it just sort of wafts across your face, and it's warm and heavy. And she says, "You carry something special with you. I can almost hear it." And she closes her eyes and tilts her head. Can you hear it?
Tilly stands taller. "If you're talking about my great victories, then yes, I hear it all the time. Your tales of great leisure. Conquered many.
You don't listen well enough. You should listen harder." And she reaches out and kind of flicks the handle of your hammer wherever it's slung. If it's maybe across your back or hanging from your hip, wherever it is, she just kind of taps it. And then she turns. Glez, Tall Squall, while you were up, a bunch of bric-a-brac just jumped off the shelf where the honey crock just sort of pulled itself off of and went scattering across the room. And the things kind of rolled of their own accord, just across the floor, into the corners. It looks like they're kind of running away from Baba Yaga and scattering away from her into the corners of the room.
and she didn't really pay it any attention.
Do they seem to be running towards anything, or just literally running away from her?
They seem to be running away from her, like they're rolling under cabinets and into dusty corners. Looks like they're trying to find hiding places.
Right. I mean, I know there's a lot of general knowledge here, and this is where I got to try to separate my. Cause I've like read all these chapters like 5 times because I love it. I love her story. I mean, would Glaz know a little bit about her deals, people who don't fulfill their deals, and things like that?
I mean, there's all sorts of stories of her making bargains with people, and often that not going well. But occasionally, you hear about someone becoming, fantastically wealthy or a great hero because of a boon she has given them. And you also have heard stories about kings and queens going missing or worse.
People who might be turned into honey crocs and such.
Or chairs that are groaning underneath your butt right now.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
And you hear a soft tinkle of metal as it looks like there are no more things up on that shelf anymore. It's now completely clear except for some dust, old candle wax, and just nasty things that are crusted onto the wood and soaked into it. And rolling across the table towards you is a little ring.
Hello there. Hello there.
It kind of rolls just on its side across the wood of the table. It kind of bounces on a couple of scratches, and it just drops right off the edge towards your lap.
Does this seem to be as though Baba Yaga gave it to me, or that this is something that ran towards me away from her? And
hard to say. Why don't you make a wisdom insight check with disadvantage?
Okay. Come on, buddy. Because he would be worried about stealing from her, but also very curious. The question is whether I win or lose. What's the way that your glass is going to go? That looks like a 5.
You really can't tell. I would say it didn't look like she gave it to you, but she really hasn't paid any attention to anything that's moving or doing weird things in her hut every time they do it.
So it kind of has landed, it's sort of sitting in my lap.
So you look, and it not only has landed in your lap, it actually bounced into one of your belt pouches.
Glaz totally pretends like he didn't notice.
Okay, cool. Why don't you make me a charisma deception check?
Really? Oh, Glaz, you poor low charisma dude. Deception at disadvantage. That's a 7.
Okay. All right. So, anyone else doing anything as Baba Yaga sort of putters around her hut?
I mean, I suppose...
Puff at this point is just with gusto tearing into the joint of meat that grandmother threw her.
How big is that bone?
So it looks like it's been cut off at the side. It's a decent sized bone. Definitely some sort of femur.
Okay.
Gnome leg sized?
Not a gnome sized?
No, definitely
Okay.
bigger than a gnome. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
So, does Baba Yaga keep coming around with trinkets, or is she done?
No, she just sort of is puttering around right now, and stops and looks over her shoulder at you. And she says, "So, you accept my tokens?"
I'm sorry,
look back at her.
you told me to listen to something. I don't understand the token there. But I will bargain with you.
She just kind of shrugs and says, "There is a creature in the woods. I do not like it. I believe it is the servant of the master of Demon Mountain. It has come to spy, and come to steal, and come to trick. Find this fiend and slay it, and the tokens are yours."
Glaz, when she says steal with that, goes, A ring hopped off the shelf and rolled into my pocket. Was that my trinket, or was that something trying to? I don't. You don't seem like you like stealing, and I don't want to offend you.
She just kind of ignores you, and she says, "You'll find this fiend to the west of your destination, the halls, the ever forge, the endless forge. Once your business is done there, you should find it. You should kill it. Send it back to the hells."
Is this kind of a we should do that as in a, I really want to get a new pair of boots next week kind of thing? Or is this a, if you don't do this, yes, there's going to be icky, sticky consequences. Not the good kind.
She kind of just stares at you quietly for a moment and tilts her head the other way and says, "Do you gamble? Half vampire?"
I have done in the past. Little bit.
Then perhaps you could test your luck.
I'll help
Alright.
you with this creature that you speak of if you'll let me have whatever living creature is in that box over there.
She her eyes kind of widen at that, and she looks over at the box and looks back at you. And she kind of shrugs, and you hear her shoulder pop. She says, "Done." She lifts up the box again, and it creaks. She reaches in and rummages, and you hear another. And she pulls out a kind of stout burlap sack, and it looks like it's stitched up at the opening. It's stitched closed, and it's wiggling, kind of struggling, and giving these faint cries. "Then you will kill the fiend, as I have asked, in exchange for my wonderful gifts. Yes?"
Well, we are some form of fiend slayers now. It must be said.
So Puff Puff at this point has finished the meat and is just kind of gnawing on the bone delightedly. All trace of her nervousness is gone. And she looks up, licking her chops, and she says in a soft voice, "I think we probably should go ahead and do what Grandmother asks. Seems dangerous not to, and she's been so nice to us."
Puff Puff is saying that.
Yeah, Puff Puff said that.
Okay. So, in Sylvan?
That was in common. In trade tongue. And so...
I agree, Puff Puff.
After that, Baba Yaga kind of claps her hands together and says, "Oh, delightful, it worked. It's been so long since I've seen one of her kind."
Yes.
Well, I'm very uncomfortable.
What is a few more fiends?
Only
Okay.
one. The rest are
only
yours.
one.
Well, what manner of fiend might this be? Has it
She looks up and
Has it a
squints.
name?
I know where it travels. Through hollows and tracks to the west of the Everforge. Not quite to the mines of silver. It will soon, though. It seeks flesh and souls, and will find scant few of those in the depths of the Margrave.
Glaz much more enthusiastic.
It thinks to hunt in my backyard, and I shall not have that.
After all the research Glaz did, and she says that it's searching for souls, Glaz once again, now again with purpose. Yes, I do think we will go take care of this for you. Grandma.
Wonderful. Then finish your tea and be gone.
Rowan's going to. She's just been absent-mindedly fiddling with the bones in her pouch, and is just going to take a few of them and roll them on the table, and is asking what.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
She's asking what manner of creature they are being asked to hunt.
Okay, so you toss the knuckle bones onto the table, and they clatter and sort of bounce, and they sort of spin a little bit, and then they just keep spinning. They never come to a stop, and they're clattering and knocking into each other. And as they clack and squeak and tap on the table, grandmother actually begins to caper and dance a little, as if she's just sort of staring off into space.
The runes, they sing so sweet. Normally.
I want some new dice.
So, I suppose you are not unfamiliar with such magic, grandmother.
She is completely ignoring you and just sort of dancing and now kind of like warbling this discordant song that actually makes your teeth vibrate in your jaws as she sings.
Wait, makes my beak vibrate?
Well, your beak begins to ache and feels almost like it's pulling apart. Like the halves of your beak are trying to split as she sings.
Quick questions. Do I hear any ley lines while I'm in here? Is there any song of the ley lines while I'm here?
I would say your reach is what, a mile with your
A mile,
with your ability?
yeah.
You don't hear any ley lines, but you know you're getting close to the Everforge line.
Everforge ley line. Okay, so just if for some reason if we were someplace like totally different, if I was hearing a new ley line.
But as you listen, you do hear something. You hear a voice whisper, "We should go."
Okay. Grandmother?
Rowan, have you picked up the runes?
Yeah, Rowan is snatching the bones up off the table and is shoving them back into her pouch and is standing up very quickly.
So as you grab the rune bones, and it's actually a little difficult because they kind of dance and skip out of your grasp. You have to chase them a little bit around the table, and they're even jumping in your hand against your palm, and they don't seem to really settle down until you get them back in their pouch. And as you grab each one, she starts to kind of give up more and more on her little maddened caper, and she stops and sort of settles and sighs and stares into the fire and turns around back to Glaz. What is it? What do you
Mistress of Secrets, I would like to parley with you.
Have we not already had a wonderful afternoon with friendly conversation and gifts exchanged for promises of service?
Yes, indeed, and I have another gift.
Her eyes sort of widen a little bit. A gift, then? What do you bring, Glazishin?
I take out a crystal vial.
Ooh. What is
It's rich in maroon color. It is a memory filter of youthful joy.
Ooh. Interesting.
Back from year one. And for grandmother, I think that might have some interest.
It is interesting. All right. So she looks at that and she kind of licks her lips and says, "Oh, clever boy, clever boy. What is it you wish to trade for?"
Knowledge. And I know that your knowledge is vast and very valuable, so I would not ask for more than you are willing to give or trade for this vial. I seek pages of the Nullifier's lexicon.
She sucks in her breath through her teeth
How very interesting. How very, very interesting. Yes, I know where they are. And for that joy, I will let you take some of the secret with you.
It is yours.
She, like, in a second, she is across the room, kind of in your face, and snatches it out of your hands. It's like a horror movie where the ghost is across the room in the shadows in 1 second, and then in your face the next, between blinks. The rest of you kind of see her. You can't even really parse what your eyes just showed you. It's very strange. It's almost like she's been right up next to Glaz, purring in his ear the whole time. And she wraps her fingers around it and takes it, and her nails start to click discordantly against the crystal. And she... Good. Yes. Yes. Go then. Take your secrets.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So she.
I'm assuming that she'll deliver them in some way. He's not going to press. He's assumed that she's good to her.
You feel a weight at your belt, and that belt pouch feels heavy.
I thank you, grandmother, for this boon.
She kind of turns her back on you and ignores you. Yeah.
We should go.
Yes, we should go.
Wrinkling her bag. All right.
Grandmother this entire time has completely ignored Paula, and Paula has returned the favor. She's just kind of kept her eyes down, and she sipped her tea, and hasn't even gotten through half a cup, and just shut up and let you guys do whatever it is you're doing. And if you guys would like to have a look at the grandmother, there she is.
She is so cool. The teeth are alive, everyone. The teeth are alive. Sorry.
All right. So everyone leave the house.
Yeah, so like as everyone leaves one by one, like literally Cloak the whole time. Like, is there a fire going?
Oh, there's a fire going, yeah.
Yeah, so like Cloak would have been like angled like where he's been on Puff Puff's back the whole time, but he's just been staring. And no matter where Baba Yaga went, he was staring. And all you could see is like the fire getting reflected on his mask, and then the fire in his eyes even more intense as he just stares and just studies.
This entire time, Cloak, you've been sort of vibrating with barely contained rage, and all of that was frosted over with this icy terror that, try as you might, you couldn't really put out of your mind, because you've just been watching her for this entire little exchange, the object of your entire people's doom, shuffling around like a crazy old woman, offering your friends gifts and demanding services in exchange.
Yeah.
Everybody makes their way out, and Puff starts heading for the door.
Rowan is ushering everyone out quickly and keeping an eye on Cloak to make sure he's coming out as well.
Yep, Cloak. As far as I know, Cloak leaves the hut.
Yeah. I'm not fucking staying in there. Are you crazy? No. I like, my anxiety level's been high this whole time because I was like, I'm waiting for it to be like, we're all leaving, and then all of a sudden the door shuts in front of Puff Puff, and I'm been like, fuck! Like,
all right. So you all head out. The Vila is still waiting at the gate. She opens it for you, Glaz, as you leave.
Thank you very much for this amazing invitation and opportunity for us.
I'm so glad she was still willing to speak with you, all things considered.
Me as well.
You should go now, back on your way. And she points. That is your path.
Thank you for your hospitality, and do thank your dear mother.
Great tea.
She just kind of nods at all of you, and she, once you're all outside of the yard, she closes the gate, and she walks off in a different direction toward the woods. The hut gives a shudder and a creaking groan, and it shifts and raises back up into the air as the chicken legs stretch themselves out again, and they kind of dance back and forth, flexing their clawed toes and pinching at the dust, scratching at it.
The bag, I
Bryan
assume, is still waggling, wiggling, making noise.
Oh yeah, the bag is waggling and wiggling. It's pretty quiet at the moment, but it is waggling.
Rowan just lets out a huge breath, and it feels like she's been holding the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
That could have gone very badly.
Didn't feel like it went great. What the hell? What is any of this? And why didn't she see Cloak? Because I don't think I've read the note yet.
We should probably get further away from her home before we discuss our situation, you know?
She also seems to have ears everywhere. But yes, we should at least get a little further away.
To the Everforge.
Yes, perhaps. I don't know what kind of protection. Who knows? Who knows where we can speak openly? But she did not ever seem. She knew more about us, but did not. And knew about our adventures, but not even the part our friend took in it. He's not even using Cloak's name at this point. Terrified, kind of scared.
Tilly will ask Paula, do you know your way to the forge from here?
Paula kind of stares dumbly for a moment, blinks, and shakes herself back to her senses, and looks around and says, I want to get away from this yard, if you don't mind, but we'll see. So she turns and follows the direction that Sophia pointed.
I'm sorry we dragged you into this.
She kind of like spreads her hands helplessly and is like, "What? I don't know that you had much to do with it." What else were you gonna do? Let's get out of here, all right? And she kind of tugs the mule and heads for the tree line.
Yes, let's.
Follow.
Okay. So for the rest of the day, you're all still going to be affected by the Dance of the Luckless. So keep in mind your disadvantage on ability checks. So if you know that you're only a couple hours away from the halls of Everforge, and once you get away from the hut clearing in the direction that the Vila pointed, you're able to pick out some landmarks, and both Paula and Cloak are able to get you guys back on the track, back on the right path toward the halls, no problem. So she sort of points and says, it's, well, at the pace we've been making with Cloak blazing our trail. And she kind of looks over at Puff and Cloak and just shakes her head, says, we're only a few hours away.
Cloak doesn't say anything.
Okay.
Glaz is going to reach into his pocket where the ring hopped into.
Okay. So you reach into the pouch, and there is indeed a little gold ring in there.
And Glaz, in his normal sort of, academic way, is just like, now what in the world are you? And starts looking for inscriptions or anything like that.
I'm sorry, it's not gold, it's silver.
Okay, silver ring.
It's very cold. There's no ornaments or any sort of etching or anything on it. It's just a plain silver band, and it has these weird little bits of tarnish. You know, when a ring will get when silver ages and isn't kept perfectly clean, it gets that sort of dark black kind of smearing on it. It has a few spots like that. Huh. So it looks like a very old, not particularly not particularly noteworthy, like an antique silver band, but it is icy cold to the touch.
Interesting. So I guess, I mean, Glaz being trained in Arcana, does he know that that's not just natural coldness?
It seems very likely to be magical in some way, especially since it was moving of its own accord and, all the other things that have been going on. So you're holding it in your hand, and you hear that whisper again. Hello.
Glaz looks over his shoulder.
You get the distinct impression that the whisper came from the ring.
Yeah. I was kind of talking a little bit rhetorically when I asked what you were. But hello, how are you? You seem cold.
So everybody, Glaz starts talking to the ring in his hand.
Are you okay, Classician?
Yes.
So the ring gives, you can feel almost like this little bit of a twinge in the metal in your palm, and it says, "Thank you for bringing me out of there. I have been there for so very long. I'm surprised grandmother let me go. I don't suspect that I fooled her.
I'm not very good at lying. I don't think we fooled her either.
But I think you bought me.
I think apparently, yes. If we kill a demon, then she isn't going to come take you back, I don't think. What is your name? I am Glaz.
There's this kind of deep sigh. It's been so long, I don't remember.
Oh, well, that is a shame.
Yeah, there's this kind of this like a sad twinge to the voice.
We will have to come up with something then. Perhaps when we know each other a little better. It is nice to meet you. It is nice to meet you. He sort of puts his because he has sort of like the big thick things, and almost like as though he was shaking his hand, but putting his hand sort of through the kind of like as though because Glaz is Glaz. He's like going to shake his hand. How
are you actually putting the ring on, or just kind of doing the little shaking motion?
I do the shaking motion first because Glaz then goes, "I do not want to be forged. Should I wear you? Should I get a chain around the neck or just in the pouch? What do you prefer?"
My purpose is to adorn your finger. That seems best.
Okay. And he puts it on.
All right. So you put it on, and it fits perfectly. It's cold, little uncomfortable, but after a while, you start to get used to it, and it doesn't really seem to bother you.
It is very funny. Normally, rings do not fit my fingers very well because they are kind of, knubby, and I've got the big knuckles. But you fit. That's nice. It's very nice. You're quite handsome. Nice.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Perhaps when we get to where we are going in.
Your friends are staring at you strangely.
Oh, I look up. Oh, hi.
Were you open to Glaz?
The ring?
Was it the tea? I didn't drink any of the tea. Was it the tea? I knew not to drink it. I knew she'd do something to it.
I had the tea.
I don't think it was the tea. You would know. You would know. Real. That was it drugged?
Not as far as you can tell.
No spice at all. No flavor, actually. Really. When I said good tea, I mean it was just tea. It wasn't
So what are you talking
about? The ring from Baba Yaga's house.
The ring is
moving close and like. I don't.
The ring is talking to you.
Can you say hello, ring?
You wish me to speak to your friends?
If you would like. They kind of think I'm a little crazy now, but that's kind of par for the course. So it's not a big deal.
I would say it's no stranger than your typical behavior.
Pretty much.
All right, so there is a sort of soft, tinny voice that emanates from Glaz's hand, and it says, "Hello, friends of Glaz."
Hello.
I apologize for being rude, but I don't think I have a name.
Great.
We're going to work on it. We will workshop it.
I feel like I must have at one time, but it's been so long. So many things forget their purpose and their past in grandmother's house.
Hmm.
Well, perhaps we can help you with that.
I would like that.
I suppose you were once, well, not necessarily human, but not a ring.
That seems likely.
Well,
We could call you Ringo.
Quiet. If you insist, but I don't think I like it.
we will work on it, I think. But
You're not the only one. Don't worry. You're just kind of the worst one.
Oh, Paula at this point kind of runs a hand over her face and says, could we get going? I mean, if you guys want to talk to your jewelry, we can do it on the way.
that's what I
Cloak
was
is already
thinking.
leading the way.
Okay.
Cloak has not paid attention to anyone. He's just been going forward.
Okay. So you guys will have to hustle a little bit to catch up with Cloak, but you can. And yeah, so you make your way trekking through the woods. You guys can continue to talk or discuss if you want, but it'll take you about a 2-3 hour trip to return to the halls of Everforge.
I'm thinking that your new sword, if Cloak's up ahead, I don't know if he's listening to me or ignoring me, but it probably makes sense to get you a new sword before we go fight a demon. So, and seeing as it's a bit further on, wasn't that what she said?
You were gonna go fight a demon. I'm not going. I didn't make a deal with Baba Yaga.
Oh, okay. Then okay.
It wasn't really a deal, was it? It was more of a, hey, here's my gifts. By the way, you're going to pay me for them.
As they talk about the deal and gifts, Tilly's going to start kind of opening the bag.
All right, so you kind of rip the stitches out or take a dagger and cut them loose. You look inside, and as you start to open it, it starts thrashing and wiggling again, and inside is a little lamb.
Oh, well. And she'll just kind of set it on the ground. She looks at Paula.
So the lamb will kind of shake and shuffle from inside the sack, and will eventually sort of wiggle its way out and just start walking around on the trail and bleats a little bit. Meh.
All right, well, I guess we'll take her with us, I suppose. She'd pick the lamb up under one arm.
Paula kind of shrugs. If you
I mean, I thought it was a human, but I guess not. I'm not listening very well, like she said, I suppose.
No, it sounded like a child, like crying. Definitely.
The crying of the lambs, Clarice.
It tasted like Fresca and fava beans.
Fresca and fava beans. All right. So, the rest of the trip is essentially uneventful, just whatever discourse you guys might want to have. Cloak, I think, is very all business, just heading on out. And you guys come to the hillside that has kind of a light clearing, not really a full clearing. The trees just sort of thin out a little bit. And you can see the ancient stone plinths that mark the entrance into the halls of Everforge. For those of you who haven't been here before, it's just a post and lintel entrance, maybe, how wide was it? Like 20 feet? It was huge, if I recall correctly. Massive worked stone hallway that drives back into the hillside. Yeah, it's 20 feet wide. And dwarven runes carved on the lintel proclaim it as the halls of Everforge, which, Tilly, of course, you can read. Possibly also Rowan. I don't remember if you speak Dwarvish. Inside, there are...
Yes.
You can see some stone doors, as well as massive stone carvings of armored figures holding various weapons, kind of up against the walls. They're not really full statues. They're almost like massive bas-reliefs carved onto the wall, if that makes sense. And so Paula comes forward
and takes a deep breath and looks over the entrance with sort of a difficult to read expression, but she looks back at you all and says, well, we're ready to do this then.
I am.
All right. So mind the traps toward the double doors up by the forge. You remember those, right?
Oh, I remember.
Traps?
All right. Yeah, most of the hallway's safe. Just don't run ahead of me. And she starts into the wide hallway. It's all masterfully worked stone. The mule's hooves clatter and echo, and it seems a little bit nervous going in here, but follows along with no real trouble. And as you head down toward the end of the hallway, you pass 6 doors on either side of the 3 on either side of the hall, and about a dozen, maybe a few more of these statues, and they seem to be showcasing various different styles of weapons and armor. And they're dwarven figures, but they're massive. They're probably 10 feet tall. So as you guys get to the end, in the last 20 feet or so, Paula holds up her hand and says, there are pressure plates here, some of you probably remember. And the massive double doors at the end of the hallway are still standing open as they were when you left them. And that leads into a huge chamber, and you can see with your dark vision and the like a large ascending platform, almost like a ziggurat of stairs that goes up to a great flat area. You can't really see what's going on.
Is there still a dead bear in there?
You get close, and you can, in fact, see the remains of a dead bear. Oh, yes. It seems that the forest scavengers have been at the carcass and have picked it pretty well clean. There are probably still some like scraps of nasty fur and the like, but most of it has been picked clean or rotted away at this point, and the skeleton is mostly disarticulated, pulled apart by scavengers. But it's still kind of in that same area near the front door, inside that big hall. In that big chamber. So Paula goes over to one of the sconces, and there are these iron torch sconces all along the walls, but they've all been cold and dark. She finds one of them and messes with it, and you hear a soft click, and then from a couple places in the hallway, you hear echoes, ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. And she nods and says, all right, the traps are safe. We can just walk on through now.
Glaz
Yeah, they're fine.
and Glaz will start pulling out the Heart of Flame so that it's ready.
Okay.
His lantern.
So,
he doesn't get it out, but get the lantern.
You pull out the shuttered iron lantern. You head into this room, and this room is massive. This is most definitely the heart of this place, and it is a huge forge. In the 4 corners of the room are massive anvils, and up on the top of this ziggurat of stairs leading up to a dais is almost like, it looks sort of like a low altar. And Paula starts heading up that way. In the exact corners of the room, near those giant anvils, are massive stone, what look like water barrels. And there's also doors. There are doors in the east and west walls. So Paula heads up toward the top of that ascending platform and sort of beckons Glaz to come up.
Yeah, Glaz follows, and I guess pretty much, I mean, it's familiar. This is where he got the Heart of Flame from, where it sort of goes back into. So
where is everybody else at this point as they ascend the platform?
Rowan is
I'd be
just
going up there too.
Okay.
Rowan's just standing at the bottom, just looking at all of this with awe.
Oh, there's also human remains in here. Several sets of human and smaller humanoid remains as well.
Yeah,
so there's all kinds of bones picked clean in this place. A lot of death happened here.
I think
Cloak had
Tilly will be
nothing
at
to
the
do
base
with
of the stairs of the platform, but not go up with them.
Cool.
I can show you guys around if you want. I'll say to Rowan and Tilly. Was here last time, but I'm on vacation, so.
A guided tour, perhaps?
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay. So up on the up on the dais, the what appeared to be an altar or a platform or plinth, or a bier, that sort of thing, is actually a furnace. It's a forge. There's a great ringed stone wall with ash and charcoal and coke, basically, just packed in there. And Paula points toward the furnace and says, "All right, let's return the heart, and I'll bring the forge. I'll bring the forge back to life for as long as we need it."
I put it. Yeah, I know. I put it there and basically place the heart back, heart of flame back in the forge. Yeah, you basically open the lantern and kind of pour the blue flame back into the furnace, and it just rolls out of it, this living blue fire, and it burns in a little sort of palm-sized sphere of flame in the dead center of it. And Paula says, "You might want to step back. This will take just a few minutes." Of course, yes. This is yours. Your expertise. I was hiding the barrel last time.
She stands in front of the furnace, kind of looks around at all of the 4 different anvils arranged around the room, and she begins reciting basically a prayer or a sort of an honor to her ancestors in Dwarvish, and then she turns back to the forge and begins to chant. Tilly, you can understand it. It sounds very much like a sort of ancestral. There's definitely magic to it, but it's very much like a prayer. And so after a few minutes of her intoning, you can see that this flame begins to intensify in the middle of the furnace, and it begins to grow brighter and brighter and larger, and that blue color gives way to first this dull sort of sooty orange. And then it gets brighter and brighter until it explodes with a roar, like a blast furnace, into this towering inferno of nearly white flame. And as it does, all of the torch sconces down the main hallway flicker to life, bathing the entire interior, everywhere that you can see with an open door, in at least in this main chamber, and then the long entrance hall in this warm torchlight. The heat that rolls out from the furnace and fills this room is tremendous. It prickles your skin and causes you to kind of lift your hands to shield your face. Those of you who maybe have worked around a forge might be a little more accustomed to it, but it's intense. Glaz, you are supremely uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, Thrallkin do not like the fire.
Right.
Rowan's a bit uncomfortable as well. It's just stirring up some memories for her.
Okay. So
I'm trying to help Paula the best I can.
Yep, she looks over toward Cloak and waves you forward, and she starts breaking out her smith's tools. So she's going to probably spend likely a couple of days, essentially, working and preparing your sword to accept the magic. She has a lot of accoutrements that she's already put together. It looks like she's brought various fluxes. She has special water specifically for quenching the blade after she begins tempering it. She spends it. She'll take your assistance as well if you offer to help her. It's very uncomfortable up there right next to the forge, but as uncomfortable as it is, and you get the feeling that it just desperately wants to consume everything. It just wants to burn absolutely everything. But it never gets to the point that you can't stand it. You can always be around it if you can screw your courage up enough. It's a strange juxtaposition of the intensity and the lack of actual harm that this heat is doing. So you spend probably, we'll say, a couple of days. What are the rest of you doing during the 2-day span while Paula and Cloak are enchanting this blade?
It's possible Rowan might be either wandering the forge or wandering the forest nearby the forge.
Okay.
I'm very uncomfortable around this fire at the moment, and Yeah.
Are you going to put on the suit of armor that
Yes.
grandmother gave you? Okay. So, once you have it all said and done and put on, it is in fact a set of Flame Dragon Scale half plate. So it has the statistics of half plate, but does not impose disadvantage on stealth checks. And it has the magic item properties of Dragon Scale.
Sweet.
The main thing there is, the armor class it gives you, which is 15 plus your dexterity modifier, but I believe it also has a +1 enchantment, so 16 plus your dexterity modifier is your base armor class while wearing it. It requires attunement, and while attuned to it, you are resistant to fire damage. And you have some benefits against, like, dragon breath and the like.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Dang.
So you can look that up and see the exact effects as you like. Riodan, over the course of the couple of days that this has been going on, you remember that, oh yeah, I have a scab on my cheek. That crazy
Right, yeah, I was
old
going to ask about that.
my necklace, yeah. As you've been going along, you can feel your holy symbol throbbing in time with your heartbeat.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Right.
just very faint, and mostly just like when you put your fingertips on it, you can feel it, it pulsing. And so over time, you can attune to this if you like. It does require attunement. So I don't know if you have a bunch of other attunement slots or whatever. So you can feel this thing. Basically, it somehow manages to tap into your blood and becomes this wellspring of life force. You know that your wounds will recover very swiftly, and death has loosened its grip on you. This is a periaptive wound closure.
Ooh.
So at the start of your turn, if you are dying, you automatically stabilize. And when you spend hit dice during a short rest, I believe you get double the result. Or it might be maximum. You have to check on that.
It's a periaptive what, sorry?
Wound closure.
Wound closure, I'll look that up.
Yep.
Huh.
It's in D&D Beyond. They're awesome.
Neat.
They are super awesome.
That is very exciting. I like the grandma, I'll say. She's all right.
All right. Tilly, what are you doing through most of this time?
I feel like Tilly during this time has been tending her new flock and bringing refreshments and stuff to those who are working the forge.
Okay.
Since they can't really separate which one.
Are you exploring the hold at all?
I think out of general curiosity, she would explore a little bit, but not far enough to be away from them without a viewing or a hearing distance of too much, just out of protection sake. Because nobody could come in, you know.
Sure. So it's not super far, even in the farthest rooms. So it's like, I don't know.
Sure, but I mean, given the heavy hand of dwarven nature here, she of course wants
the farthest away is like 100 feet. It's like 100 feet from the door of the forge chamber.
I assume there was like
entrance.
different rooms and chambers.
Oh, there are. Yeah. There
Yeah.
are definitely rooms and chambers. But if you're going to spend, a little time now and then poking around, you can basically see pretty much everything. Paula will warn you guys not to go into the room that you guys snuck into when you first assaulted the dragon, if you remember. So if you're in the forge chamber, it's the door to the west, to the left. Mm-hmm. She's telling you not to go in there because there are guardians, and she doesn't know how you managed to not trigger them when you first came through. But you were very lucky.
Okay.
Very, very sneaky.
Spoiler alert, those pristine longswords and the plate armor were all animated. And if you had disturbed them, they would have all attacked. Yeah. So most of the hold is pretty abandoned. Like, clearly this place used to be a kitchen, and there's an oven that still seems to use some runes to draw upon the power of the heart of flame and the forge to work it. There's a bunch of rooms that are just full of rubble and detritus. There's some where it looks like there was a pitched battle, and there's a bunch of those scattered human remains, and what are you've managed to pin down are kobold remains. One room has
a low dais with a couple of steps leading up to it and 2 carved stone thrones. And painted around the room, painted and carved, is a mural of dwarven lords and ladies forging resplendent weapons and offering them in tribute to guests, people who came from far and wide to the halls to receive these wonderful creations. And when you step in, it has just sort of this solemn feel that the rest of the place kind of lacked. The rest of it feels very much like a ruin, very abandoned. This place feels important.
Is there anything telling of the thrones? Like any details or...
So you go up. It looks like they have some ornamental carving. This room is startlingly free of rubble, and it doesn't look damaged or defaced like most of the other ones did. But there's nothing really telling about it. But as you're kind of spending some time in the quiet, and at this point you're far enough away, and the walls are very thick stone, you can't even really hear the sounds of the forge that much anymore. You can occasionally catch the faint ring of hammer on anvil and on steel, just faintly. But it's very serene in here. And you hear the faintest whisper in a gruff voice that tugs at the edge of your mind. Like it's familiar, but you don't know why. Tilly.
She's essentially going to check if there's a draft. And
No. Yeah, no draft.
she'll lean into the thrones again. Is that
When you do, your hammer kind of shifts forward from its hanger and taps against the stone of the throne, and it makes almost this bell ringing like note. Something it definitely shouldn't have made, metal touching stone.
I mean, completely in shock. She's worried that, like, it's disrupted anything in the room. Completely on edge, like, as to what it would be. I mean...
Right.
Making sure nothing has shifted too much.
You look around, and there's a faint purplish glow that just kind of runs along, almost like liquid, barely there in the carvings around the walls.
She'll approach some of the carvings to see if there's...
So you walk close to them, and the light gets a little brighter. And you look down, and you see that the purplish light is reflecting in the steel of your hammer.
We should pull her hammer forward and inspect it closer to the wall and against the wall.
So you bring it up.
Reflecting the light, or is it emanating the light, essentially?
So it looks like it's reflecting, but the reflection is somehow brighter than the source. So it kind of starts to give the feeling that the hammer is glowing, although it just looks like it's reflecting the light of the walls. And you hold your hammer up, and it's heavy and comforting, the worn haft in your gauntleted hands, and you hear that voice again, Tilly. And the voice is strong and heavy and just sort of settles over you with this feeling of comfort and familiarity. And you are certain it came from the hammer, kind of, but it wasn't really, it was a strange sort of feeling.
Feeling completely stupid, because this is nothing she's come across before. She's essentially gonna get close to the hammer and be like, "Are you talking to me like the ring talked to glass? Did you get..."
So you listen. There is no response, but you spend some time kind of talking to it, holding the hammer and investigating it, and you begin to feel something from it, that there is definitely a sense of... It's not exactly like a person, but definitely a presence or a weight that the hammer didn't used to hold.
Okay. I think eventually she'll probably make her way through the room, see if there's anything extra amongst the walls, or if it's just the same sort of level of glow throughout the room.
You find a side room with a section of the wall in the north that looks like it was a secret door that was opened and kind of left ajar, but that looks like it just leads into another one of the series of rooms. You probably ignore that and go back and check out the room. After a while, the glow in the walls begins to fade. But that heft, that weight, that new feeling of increased presence of your hammer doesn't diminish.
For Tilly is not a very let me asterisk this really quick. Tilly's not a very smart character.
Fine.
But Tilly's gonna essentially come back to the throne once she sees the light fade in the room and curiously tap her hammer against the throne again and see if the light comes back.
It does not, nor does it make any sort of strange sound other than the steel of the hammer touching the stone of the throne.
But notably still feels very
Notably still feels... It's almost like the hammer is more real.
Okay.
Sort of like it is in sharp focus and everything else is not.
Should kind of hold it out, as if you're just examining the entirety of it. Something must have been in a tea, I suppose. I only had a sip of it. I told them it was. And she'll leave the room as she kind of mumbles to herself about what is going on. I don't.
All right. So you go about the rest of your explorations, and I'll just note this to you: your hammer has a +1 magical bonus to attack and damage rolls. All right. So the rest of the days pass. Rowan, the surrounding forest around the halls is pretty calm and serene. Glad's The Song of the Ley Line is resplendent in your ears every time you open yourself to it.
Is it stronger now because it's not blocked, or is it still weak?
It's not as strong as it was when you first got here, because if you recall, a bunch of power was being siphoned from what you now know as the Shadow Road to this place. Because if you recall, it was sustaining a portal to the elemental plane of fire.
Yep. It was backwards.
Right. So the next few days pass somewhat uneventfully for most of you who just kind of hang out. Rioden, it's a curious mix of bored and not as Zobek with Janielle around every corner. So you're having a hard time trying to decide whether you like it or not. It is a nice change of pace.
Yes.
Yep. On the second day, toward noon. Oh, yeah, sorry, Glaz.
I was just saying, Glaz is getting acquainted with the ring.
Oh, sure. The ring chats with you. It doesn't really have a whole lot to say because it doesn't know much or anything.
Right.
But over time, I assume you're going to kind of attune to it as you're.
Yes, I plan on attuning to it. Or actually, I was even going to do. Well, I can. Would you like me to see if I can find out what you are? I can do a quick ritual here and maybe gain.
You're going to remember.
Yeah, using ritual magic. So I pull out my moose skin and do an identify spell on it. To perhaps we can discover more about your past together.
Okay. All right. So you perform your ritual, and it's difficult. Usually, you can learn all of the properties of an item whenever you use this spell upon it. Unfortunately, something seems to be blocking your awareness, but you do manage to pick up a few things. You learn that the ring is protective. It will guard you from frost and cold.
Okay.
And you get the sense of knowledge, a great weight of knowledge that rests upon it. And you also learn basically a word which feels to you to have the sense of a name, and that's Walker.
Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Do you think that was your name or something associated with you?
So when you say that, he sort of repeats it back. Walker. I like it. It seems right.
Okay. I was thinking
And
of
as
naming
you-
you Arthur, but Walker works as well.
As you start talking to him about what you've learned, he begins to talk back, and it seems he is incredibly learned in various topics. And it's like memory starts to return a little bit as you jog his memory with some of the knowledge that you gleaned from your divination. So basically, he has proficiency in several intelligence skills that he can make to assist or maybe know things. And it also functions as a ring of cold resistance.
Very good. Also, when I'm away from everyone else, I'm going to see what appeared heavy in my pouch when I made the deal with Grandma.
It was the ring. It was the ring. It was
Oh,
it was the feeling of the ring.
That she put the knowledge.
You
in the ring. Nice.
You
That
also
is
bought
clever.
you bought the rights to the ring.
Yeah.
With your deal.
Got you.
Because
Right.
Rowan was going to come over to you and ask what it was that she gave you for the Nullifier's lexicon.
All I can find is the ring. But it seems as though the ring has knowledge. Perhaps it will reveal itself in time.
Well, it seems you have your boon. It might be that this... What did you call your ring? Walker?
Yes.
It seems perhaps it will reveal more when it remembers.
Correct. Or when it is time. Sometimes these things... It seems as though when I cast Identify, a few things came back to Walker. But there is still more that seems to be shrouded. So, we will keep talking.
How it could know about this lexicon of yours concerns me.
Well, I believe he probably got the knowledge from Baba Yaga, as she is a keeper of secrets and quite powerful, if legends are to be believed. I mean, look at the things that she created for your armor and her house. Did you notice that chicken legs? That is very strange.
Yes, it made me
They
quite
kind of look like
uncomfortable.
yours, but a little bit different.
I like to think that mine are a bit more attractive than that, but I would prefer to not be turned into a hut, or legs for a hut,
right.
or a pie.
We're gonna pause the conversation for a moment.
Yeah,
You
we
guys can
can-
get back
yeah.
to whatever you like.
Yeah.
So towards noon on the second day, Loke, you can tell that Paula's work is nearing completion. She has sort of used up most of the materials that she's brought. She is red-faced, drenched in sweat, as are you at this point. You've probably shed, several layers to be more comfortable up near the furnace. And your blade has been absorbing this incandescent, almost white fire. And when she pulls it out of the forge and is working it on the anvil, it is glowing white hot. And she has handed you a vial. In the vial is a mixture of various things, some sort of blood or oil, thinned with water, and it has all manner of gritty and ground things sort of suspended in it. Not exactly floating, but you kind of stir them up and they get stirred up into suspension. And she is holding the sword in these massive iron tongs, and she strikes the hammer one last resounding blow on the blade and looks at you and nods, and at this point you're supposed to pour the contents of that onto the blade.
Okay, and I do so.
As you do, you can feel a sudden burst of heat explode out from the sword, and then sort of swirls around you and collapses back into the blade.
And Paula throws her hand up in front of her face, and you kind of have to squint. And you look down as your vision clears. The white hot glow of the blade has dulled to this rich charcoal black with a red sheen over it, and the blade is burning, ignited. She kind of
like holding it.
She takes a few deep breaths, nods, and kind of gestures to it. You pick it up, and it is scalding hot in your hand, but doesn't seem to burn you. And you pick it up, you wave it through a few motions, and the flames sort of roar and crackle around the blade as you whip it through the air. And you can just feel the heart of flame, its heat, its power coursing through the sword.
I like to think while he was forging the sword, it was very much something where he's very angry at the moment, and he was using that anger to help Paula and help temper. I imagine there was a moment where they're tink, 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 and going back and forth and forging the sword. And it's just all he thought about the whole time is what he's staring at Baba Yaga and just hitting the hammer and how he wants to drive this sword into her eye. And he keeps forging, and that's what he thought about the whole time. It's just different ways to kill her, and everyone associated with her. And then when he's holding it, and he's I
like it. I don't know what to call it though.
All right. So as you sort of hold it out, inspect it, practice with it, over the course of the 2 days that you've been helping forge it, you have attuned to it. And your sword now has the properties of a flame tongue.
Ooh. I gotta look up flame tongue.
Yes. So, following all of that, Paula takes some refreshment, drinks deeply of the beer, the ice-cold beer that Glaz can produce from the alchemy jug. You have you all have a nice lunch following the back-breaking work in the forge, and Paula says, "So, is the plan to go hunt a demon now, so the old witch doesn't have any reason to come after you?"
I think so. Well, at least for me.
We are obligated.
Yeah. Except from Cloak, he's been moody about it.
Well, I suppose he has the luxury of her not being able to chase him.
Right.
Kind of leaves you all screwed, though.
Well,
let's
made
Cloak
our
for
bed.
you.
We made our bed. It is time to lie in it.
How about not today, though?
But-
It's maybe sleep the rest of this off a bit.
I suppose I could now divine what this creature is, now that we are out of grandmother's house.
Perhaps,
I hope
or
that-
it might have been the nature of the creature itself.
Glaz, are you ready to reclaim the Heart of Flame? I'm not going to leave it here.
Oh, yes, of course. And I go take the lantern and scoop it
All
back
right.
up.
Well, I'll come and sing it back to sleep. And she sort of chuckles and heads up with Glaz toward the furnace. She goes through a very similar ritual that she did when she ignited the furnace when you first got here. She begins chanting and kind of half singing, half praying in Dwarvish. And as the minutes drag on, there's a strange swirling in the flames. It begins to die, as you expected it to, like the last time when you saw her do this. But it's creating a sort of a vortex. Doesn't seem to go anywhere, but it is different than the last time. And you can see her brow furrow. She does not seem to understand this and was not expecting it. She keeps on and perseveres, though. And you can tell that she's beginning to strain with whatever strange magical energies she's manipulating through her family's secrets. She is sort of speaking almost through clenched teeth as this goes on, and that vortex grows faster and faster, even as it gets smaller and smaller. And it condenses down almost to that single point like you saw last time, but it's now a swirling, almost like a disc, like a sphere that's been partially flattened, and it collapses into a single point, bursts in a great explosion of flame that rips over the two of you up on the furnace. It's painful, it singes you, it doesn't deal any actual full damage. Somehow, the flames just kind of roll past you. The rest of you, who are maybe in the hallway or just kind of waiting for them to finish up, you're down in one of the rooms, maybe the kitchen. You guys clean the kitchen up and we're using that to eat your meals. You can hear this beginning to build, and all of the torches are starting to kind of go a little haywire. And so you might go peek your heads out and see what's happening. And you peek out just in time to see this roiling wall of flame rip through the furnace, through the forge room, swirl around the room once, and then collapse back up to the dais. Paula and Glaz are sort of
shuffles way up there. Just start
Paula and Glaz are stunned and sort of taken quite aback and like checking themselves to see if they're burnt and just maybe can't feel it yet. It was that hot and that intense, but you are basically unharmed, strangely. And looking down into the forge, you can see the blue kind of burning ball that is the heart of flame waiting return to its lantern, but it is sitting atop a strange calcified black and red, you'd say stone at first, but it's shaped like an egg. And it is smoking. And you can see that it's actually starting to ignite the cold coals next to it. So it's very, very hot.
First thing Glaz, having fire wash over him as a troll, was probably squealed like a little girl for at least a moment. Yeah! And then calmed himself down, and then sees that, and then looks at the egg, and knowing that we fought a dragon here, and...
The burst of flame that ripped its way out through the chamber did scatter all of those remains and burnt most of them to ash. In fact, there's kind of a spray of dark black and gray ash that's spattered up on the wall. That pile of ashes begins to stir.
Oh no.
It puffs up again, releasing a plume or cloud of dust, essentially, up into the air, and you hear a and a great shape begins to heave its way up out of the ash, along with reddish light and ashes, and a bear with smoldering fur and wild, panicked eyes scrabbles up out of its own ashes.
Glaz then looks at the bear rising from the ashes, and then looks at the egg and goes, "No, not a dragon egg. Perhaps a phoenix."
And that's where we'll stop.
Oh dear. Oh no.
Did we just get a pet back and potentially get another pet?
Oh, I don't think he came back nice.
We'll see.
Remember, he wasn't going to be nice. He wasn't going to be nice to... Actually, he's going to end up being nice to Josh, right? There was some weirdness that was going on with the animal friendship and the whatever there. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, that might have been another
there
one.
Was,
yeah.
There was weirdness going on there. There's weirdness going on here too. So we will see how this plays out next time.
Yeah,
definitely. Is there not weirdness going on?
So, as you guys might have been able to guess, this has been a moment where we're gathering up a lot of those wonderful donations that have been falling on us for the past several sessions, and sort of bringing those to fruition. So, thank you, our lovely donors, for all of your generous support and helping my hapless players out, giving them some boons. But since I'm not just going to hand them magic items, I'm going to attach some strings with Baba Yaga.
Because that's not ominous.
I got the fuck out of that shit, so...
That's just what we need. Oh dear. Well, my friends, that's all we've got time for tonight here on the World Tree Burns. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed tonight's episode. If you did, let us know. We'll be back, of course, next week at Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we're here. Boy, we're coming towards the end of this season. This next episode is our penultimate episode of the second season of the show. Wow. Woo! Things are going to get exciting.
Yep.
Let's go on a cast and a crew then. Did we enjoy ourselves? Where can we find you? Let's start with, of course, Dan. Fantastic job tonight. That was creepy.
Thank you.
How's that for you?
That was great. It was great. It was interesting. It's always fun to try and take the donations and work them in an organic, fun, believable way, rather than just having stuff rain out of the sky at you. So this was cool. This was a fun one, and I've been looking forward to some Baba Yaga interaction for a while. So this season we saw a little bit of touchstone onto Cloak's backstory. That was a blast. I had a great time. You guys did great. I love this game. I love playing with you. So who am I? I'm Dan Dillon. I'm a game designer on the Dungeons & Dragons team for Wizards of the Coast. And you can find me on Twitter at Dan_Dillon_1. And I love talking D&D and Midgard and anything Kobold Press.
Hell yeah. And Simply, how's that tonight for you and Tilly?
That was good. Tilly being a little dumbfounded and confused. I, as a player, am pretty sure I know who that voice belonged to, but Tilly can only feel a mild bit of familiarity, but no, can't be. I had a great time tonight. Baba Yaga was 10 out of 10, one of the best experiences ever. And if you guys aren't supporting Dan here, either as a DM or on his own, please do, because if that didn't convince you, please just go back and watch it again. That was wonderful. It was great role-playing, so... but yeah, it's been good. I'm actually kind of really sad to think about how we're kind of coming to a season end soon. I feel like we only just latched on and started. So, me as a person outside of this broadcast, I am a streamer here on Twitch. I make art, lots of art right now. I've been getting a big art push, and you can check me out any Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Saturday night. And that's it. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting. Thanks for the donations, follows, love, subs, rescrubs, retweets, etc. I'm gonna go. Get back.
Fantastic. And McCloakin, how's that tonight for you and Cloak?
Hi, I'm McCloakin. You might recognize me from such films as No One to Shut the Fuck Up and Forging 101.
You guys could have fought the Vila. I was prepared for that.
I was ready to do that. No one else apparently was ready for me to fight the Vila. So
true.
They all stopped me. Cloak, there's gonna definitely be some interesting interactions with Cloak in the future with the rest of the party, I think currently. So I'm looking forward to that, and I liked how tonight went. It was very interesting, and I think Cloak got a lot from it. Also, where he stands in comparatively to even going against someone as powerful as Baba Yaga, like where his place is. So I think there's a lot of. There's one thing that I did, and why I stopped attacking with Cloak is because I got a really good wisdom roll, the wisdom saving roll. And so I kind of hashed onto that a little bit and used that into my decision to look at the situation, look at your friends here. You're not going to help them, especially if more sisters are there. And then getting out the Margreave as well. If he did bad on his wisdom saving roll, I would fucking let the dice roll, hit that bitch. But
that makes sense.
I had a blast. I'm looking forward to next week and see what stories we come up with, and I got to name my sword, and I don't know what I'm naming it yet. So there's a few ideas running out there, so we'll see.
Cool.
Fantastic. And Scarlet, how's that tonight for you and Rowan?
I've still got an adrenaline rush right now. I'm just trying to calm my heart down because I was holding my breath that entire time with Baba Yaga and just praying to Wotan that was going to work out. I have no idea how this season is going to end, and that both excites me and terrifies me. 2 episodes to go. It really just feels like we've only just started. So, gonna see how that all pans out. I am Scarlet Moth. You can find me at that Scarlet Moth on Twitter. I'm an artist, cosplayer, D&D lover, and shitposting aficionado. I'm currently working on a Rowan cosplay for some conventions in April. I'm also fixing up a few other things at the moment and still working on more World Tree art. I'm still working on my series I started with Glaz and trying to finish the one I started of Riodan. So keep an eye out for that.
Those are wonderful.
So cool.
Yeah, I've got it. Haven't started coloring it yet, but it's a bit hard to see.
Oh,
Stuff's
nice.
happening.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yep. I see those ribbons.
I drew hands. I'm real happy. That never happens.
Fantastic. And then last but not least, Tour School.
Oh, that was fun. I love the whole Baba Yaga mythos in Midgard, and to have her hut come to life and have her there, and she had her teeth in her mouth. So that was the whole time like, it's not just one person if we don't mess with her, because her teeth will get you too. But no, I had a blast, and I'd kind of forgotten her whole thing about secrets, and so it was literally right in the middle of the episode that I was like, what do I have to bargain with Baba Yaga with? And so that was interesting to see how that might or might not go. I had a blast. And I've got a ring. I have a walker to talk to, which is frighteningly close to Dread Walker, which is a little bit scary. But we shall see. We will see. Because Glaz is going to make friends. Of course he's going to make friends. I'm Tall Squall. You can find me all over the internet as Tall Squall. And if you found me on Midgard, let me know. If you find me somewhere else.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, that's all we've got time for here tonight in the World Tree Burns. Like I say, back next week for the penultimate episode of this season.
I have one
announcements
thing.
coming soon.
Thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Bookluck.
Before we leave, I found the name for my sword, and I had to do some digging to find some information. So the name is Trissa, and to activate the flames is Morgrim.
Ooh, nice.
Dope. Love it. Awesome.
Nice.
Well, like I mentioned, next week, 8 p.m. Eastern here every Tuesday. Tomorrow I've got a new show which is on at 5 p.m. Eastern. I'm really excited about its Adventures in Middle-earth. A long-awaited return to that show is sponsored by Cubicle 7, so I'm super excited to be working with those guys. So definitely come along. It's myself. Yeah, it's myself, Jim Davis, Jonathan Pruitt from WebDM, Charlie Frost from Fire, Hazard, and Madame Gandalf. Oh my god, of course, the most Tolkien-esque of all of us, Madame Gandalf will be with us tomorrow at 5. So, super excited for that one. Come and join us. But until next time, try not to roll too many nat ones. We're going to be a little laughing when you do. Good night, everybody. Bye.
Good night.